All right, at 1:03, it looks like we are live on YouTube, and I will call to order the April 21st meeting of the Finance Committee. It is our 6th day of budget hearings. And if we could get a roll call, please.
Sure. Councillor Villarreal.
Yeah.
Councillor Rivera.
Here.
Councillor Cassett.
Here.
Councillor Lindell.
Here.
Councillor Romero Worth.
I am here.
We have a quorum.
Awesome. All right, approval of the agenda. We have the Community Health and Safety Department and their various directors and personnel with us, and that is pretty much our agenda today. Do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda for today's meeting. Can we get a roll call, please?
Councillor Villarreal.
Yes.
Councillor Rivera.
Yes.
Councillor Cassett.
Yes.
Councillor Lindell.
Yes.
And Councillor Romero Worth.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. I just want to make a public apology to Councilwoman Villarreal from yesterday's meeting. In my haste to give the chairwoman of the Quality of Life Committee a break between the end of our budget hearing and the beginning of the Quality of Life Committee, I overlooked the fact that Councilwoman Villarreal was also on that committee, and a break was probably a good thing for her as well. And I know we have all these budget meetings are a big overlay on our the regular demands of our jobs. And these things are the regular meetings that we are doing do not subside while we take on these meetings. And so I think we have all had meetings that have run back to back, either at the beginning of these budget hearings or after they have finished. And it is a considerable effort that we are all making. And I just want to acknowledge that we're all balancing all the demands that are placed on us in getting this budget through. So anyway, with that, we will go on to our first and only department for the day. We have with us Director Ochoa and the Community Health and Safety Department and its divisions. And I don't know, Director McCoy, if you wanted to say anything before we launch into this budget, or whether we just turn it right over to Director Ochoa.
Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Director Ochoa for some brief remarks before we begin.
Terrific.
Director,
welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you, Director McCoy. It's my privilege to stand before you to represent the Community Health and Safety budget. The Community Health and Safety Department, as you know, was created very recently. We're made up of community services, of recreation, emergency management and safety, our fire department, and our police department. The mission of our department really has to do with the idea that a healthy community is a safe community. We look to a holistic response to public safety and innovative response that really allows us to target resources and programs along a continuum of prevention to intervention. I think if the Community Health and Safety Department does its job right, in 10 years, our police department and hopefully even our fire department will be a lot less busy than they are right now. It's been a great group to lead, and it's interesting to note that if you look at our overall budget, which is quite large, about a third of it is dedicated to police, about a third to fire, and about a third to community health and safety and risk, give or take. And I think that's indicative of the fact that obviously cities are responsible for public safety 100%. We have other funding sources from state and other local partners on social services and community services, which doesn't mean that we can't grow what we are looking to invest in all of those services. Really, if we think about what the community's health and safety department is, it's made up of 520 very, very dedicated public servants who are doing everything from transporting and feeding our seniors, developing great programming for lifelong education in our libraries, running our summer and after school programs so all kids have access to our great facilities and great programming. We are also, of course, looking at our COVID response and our emergency management department and other emergency responses and our safety of all in that same department. And then last but very much not least, we have a number of people who have chosen a career in public safety who clock in every day, pretty much prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice. And so with that, I would like to introduce my incredible team. I have my business operations manager, Manuel Sanchez, who has helped us tremendously pull together as a department on the administrative end. We have our community services director, Maria Sanchez Tucker, our emergency management and safety director, Brian Williams, our fire chief, Ryan Moya, and our police chief, Paul Joy. And with that, I think we can launch into presentations on individual budgets, Madam Chair, if that works for you. I do just want to call out before we begin. I think Mary and team will pull up our slide deck. Is that correct? Thank you.
Thank you.
And if we go to the first slide after this one, the committee can see that when fully funded in fiscal year 23, we'll have 657 positions in this large department. Right now, we have about a 20% vacancy rate, similar to the rest of the city. And we'll just wanting to pull out, and we'll talk about each of these in terms of their individual budgets. We're very grateful for the 7 new FTEs that we're getting in fiscal year 23 that's going to help us serve the community that much better. And with that, we'll turn it over to Maria Sanchez Tucker on the next slide in the Community Services Department.
Thank you, Director Ochoa. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm pleased to present an overview of the Community Services FY23 budget. I'd also like to introduce our division directors that are here today. Director of Senior Services, Gino Rinaldi, and Director of Youth and Family Services, Julie Sanchez. I'm still currently serving as the Library Division Director, but we just received our LOE full of wonderful candidates, and hopefully we will be able to move forward with that hiring process to fill the Library Director position. I know you all are aware of the important work of the Community Services Department and how our department contributes to a thriving community, improving our quality of life, and providing the vital services and resources to all, especially to those who need these services and resources the most. And this proposed budget reflects 2 new staff positions, and this will ensure that we have the leadership and oversight to ensure that our programs are successful. We're currently working to fill our vacant positions that you can see listed here. Next slide. These are a few highlights of the proposed 23 budget. It's notable that the community services budget will see a $3.7 million increase over pre-pandemic levels of 2019. And we also have an increase in libraries for security services, an important increase to food and supplies for seniors due to the challenge of inflationary increases. Also, in next week's ARPA hearings will reflect proposed additional increases for the Youth and Family Services Division. And so you can see all of the wonderful support for the programs and services of this department reflected in this budget. Next slide. And I'd just like to also echo Director Ochoa's comments about our staff. The entire community services staff has worked very hard, and their dedication and flexibility has shown as they've continued to serve the community through all phases of this pandemic that we've experienced. So I would just like to ask Director Ochoa if she would like to highlight anything from this community services admin budget.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria. We really are seeing obviously an increase in our salaries, wages and benefits for our non-union 8% raises reflected here. We're also pretty much steady state with this budget. As Dr. Sanchez Tucker mentioned, we will be coming to you next week, and this budget will see, if you approve it, a significant increase in community programs and services through the ARPA funding. I think we can stand for questions on this budget on any of the individual line items at this time, if that works for you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely. So if we could stop sharing the screen just so we can see each other, and we can always go back if we need to, and as the committee needs to. So if there are questions from the committee at this moment, and we are, just so the committee knows, we are going to approve each division individually rather than one vote on the whole department. Councilwoman Cassett.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. And thank you, Maria and Kira, for being here. I think I mostly have a comment, which is that I'm really excited to see another program manager in Youth and Family Services Division. Julie, there you are. Julie works incredibly hard, and I am very excited to see her getting some more support. I know a lot of our team works very hard. All of our team works very hard, but I know that there's a lot going on with Youth and Family Services. So I was really happy to see that, as well as the $529,000 for more library materials. That has been a really big one that I've heard from constituents. So thank you for putting that one in as well. That's going to be huge. I look forward to you not having to work 2 jobs, Maria. So hopefully you can get somebody hired soon. I did have a couple questions. So I do see a lot for contractual services at the library, and I was hoping you could tell us a little bit more about those. I know that those are some programs that I'd like to hear what's being highlighted there.
So the increase in the contractual services really reflects the security service contract. That's mainly where that goes. It also reflects some services to oversee our laptop and hotspot lending program as well.
Wonderful. While we're here real fast, how's that program been going? I know that was really exciting when we launched it.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Councillor Cassett. The program is going great. We have a lot of use of our laptops and especially our hotspots. Being able to take your Wi-Fi home after you leave the library has really been wonderful for many people who need to work on job applications and other projects. And so we welcome you spreading the word more about the availability of that at the libraries, but we are promoting it, and it's very successful.
Wonderful. Thank you. And then lastly, talking about the vacant positions, looking at a 20% vacancy rate and 25 vacant positions here. Can I hear a little bit more about kind of a similar question that I've been asking throughout a lot of the hearings? What are we seeing in terms of challenges for hiring? Are there specific positions that you are finding to be more challenging to hire, and any supposition as to why that is occurring? I'd like to hear that as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Councillor Cassett. Reflected in the community services, we have 12 vacancies in the library, and that's just been something that we have been working to fill, both library technicians and librarian positions. We have done a tremendous job in filling several of those positions, and so we're continuing to work and advertise. The librarian position is a professional position, and sometimes finding candidates outside of the community can be difficult. And so we're working on reaching out and filling those positions and hopefully providing some career growth in the libraries. And then I think there are several vacancies in the senior services division as well. And we're working on filling those. I don't know if Director Rinaldi would like to speak to anything about any positions he's having more difficult time recruiting and hiring.
Thank you, Maria. Madam Chair, Councillor Cassett-Sanchez. The main problem we're having is, Cassett, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
and I just
No,
cleaned my
I know.
glasses, so
Don't worry
I have
about
no
it.
excuse.
That's okay. It happens all the time. Go ahead.
We seem to be having difficulty with the transit operators,
Okay.
the drivers. It just seems like we're getting one, maybe two applicants, and it's become a little bit of a challenge. But it seems like as we get, further along in all of this, there seems to be more folks applying. But that's the main area. The others, it's just been turnover. We've had some movement. We had some people leave, and then we've had some upward mobility movement within the organization, which is good for the employees.
Wonderful. Thank you, Director Rinaldi. And for those transit drivers, I think it was public utilities that we had this conversation about the requirement for a what is it? CDL, commercial driver's license. Is that a similar challenge that you're seeing in senior services as well?
Madam Chair, Councillor Cassett. Yes, that seems to be somewhat of an issue, and we run into the same thing. Plus, we'll get folks that don't apply because they think it's with public transit.
Okay.
And so we've been working with HR to differentiate that, make some differentiation that this is for seniors, it's not for public transit.
Okay.
So
Interesting. All right. Thank you so much. I think that's helpful for us to hear, and maybe something for us to think about in terms of recruitment across departments, is that if we are finding that we need, similar as we did with lifeguards, that we needed people that were licensed or certified, there's the word, and able to provide certification through the city, maybe something that we can explore. John, tapping you over there, Mr. Blair, for commercial driver's licenses, since this seems to be a need throughout different departments. So thank you for expanding on that a little bit more. I think that's something interesting for us to look at as a city. I do not have any further questions. Thank you all so much for your work. I have said it multiple times, but throughout the last couple of years, but community services was one of those that really rose to the challenge for the pandemic. And my goodness, were there so many challenges. And so I really want to recognize the work of the Community Services Department and all your teams. So thank you all.
Thank you, Counselor. We lost Councilwoman Villarreal, who's having computer issues. I want to give her just a minute, see if she can rejoin. She did have her hand raised. We can go on to Councilor Rivera, but don't want to go on too long without her. So we'll wait just a minute, see if she can rejoin us. And if whoever handles the technology can keep an eye out for her, that'd be great.
Call her just to make sure everything's okay.
Yeah, she said her computer froze. So hopefully it's just a restart. Here she is.
Yeah, here she is. I'll promote her right now.
Perfect.
Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Uh,
So sorry about that. I'm going to go to Counselor Rivera just so you have a minute to collect yourself, if that's
thank you so
okay.
much. That's perfect. Thank you.
And then we'll loop back to you. Counselor Rivera.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Director Tucker, you talked about contractual services and you mentioned security, but the bullet point above that looks at 556,000 in contractual services in the administrative division. Can you speak to those?
Yes. Director Ochoa, would you mind?
Sure.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, that contractual amount is actually the administrative amount for community health and safety as a whole. Because the budget has not been created yet, we will be bringing forward legislation so that we can do that soon, where we have a community health and safety admin org. We don't have that yet, but essentially that has been contractual services that I have used for a range of things, including encampment cleanup, consulting services for the Community Health and Safety Task Force and contractual services related to that, other consulting services, and there's a portion of that money. If you cast your mind a couple of years ago to when the department was created, it was created with a sort of $750,000 influx into that line item, and we used that $250,000 to transfer to fire for the ARU, and we're left with roughly that 500 and plus, 200,000, and we're left with 500 plus. So what we're looking to do with that in the next fiscal year is continue to support the recommendations of the Community Health and Safety Task Force. We're sort of waiting for some of those good recommendations, as well as doing some strategic planning and continuing to use that for professional services also related to the mobile hygiene unit project, as well as I said, encampment and encampment cleanup.
Thank you for that. So in the meeting that we had with the mayor, I think that we had identified that there was a certain amount of funding for the task force, Community Health and Safety Task Force, for the remainder of this fiscal year, and that we would probably need an additional 50 or 60,000 for next fiscal year. Is that where this money's at?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, yes.
Okay. So we have enough in that 556,300 to complete the community engagement process, as well as the contract with the services that we have for a contracted person to help us out with the task force. I just want to make sure.
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, yes, for a portion of the year. We also are very excited with that new youth and family services program manager, that we will have a staff person in that hire to help support the work of the Community Health and Safety Task Force. So that's going to be quite helpful, I know, as we can hardwire some of the needs the Community Health and Safety Task Force has had for better staff support.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make perfectly clear, because it's not specifically spelled out, so just wanted to clarify that. Do I have any other questions? I think that's it for now. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Back to you, Councilwoman Villarreal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to all the staff and directors that are part of the Community Health and Safety Department, and your presentations and all the work you did to put your budgets, and the preparation is pretty intense. So I appreciate all that you do, and also how all of you affect and also contribute to our health and well-being of the residents of the city of Santa Fe. So thank you so much. I think my colleagues answered or asked some of the questions I was I had, except I had a couple, let's see. I think the other question I had, and maybe I should wait. I have questions on the children and youth grants. Should we wait for that section or did we get to that section? Sorry.
I would leave that
Chair,
to Director Ochoa. Are you?
I
Are you
think
good?
we're ready, Madam Chair, unless there are
Okay.
other questions to go on to the individual division budgets, and Councilwoman Villarreal, we can answer that at that time.
Okay, that's great. So, sorry, so you said to wait then?
Yes,
Okay, perfect.
it looks
Let me
like
just
we're
double
going
check.
on.
Yes.
Did you have
that
something
works.
else before we move on?
No, I think I got everything. I was happy to hear about the new program manager and that they'll be assisting with the task force. And I'm assuming they'll also be assisting with staffing the other committees that we have, which is a lot of work. So just, and I see a yes, great. Okay, and the other questions I have for the other divisions. Thank you.
Okay. Back to you, Director Ochoa.
Thank you. I think we covered the admin budget previously. And then there's, as Maria mentioned, this is our library budget. I think the question was asked and answered on the contractuals. I don't know if we have additional questions on the library budget. Looks like not. Maybe we can move on to the next one, which is our seniors. We've called out the increases for the food and also for the new transportation program manager. I would be remiss if I didn't say what an incredible seniors program we have. We are, as Director Rinaldi will tell you, and we're looking at a 30% increase in our senior citizen population by the year 2030. So the fact that we have these really wonderful programs established is really important. We need supervision in each of our units. That prevents, obviously, safety issues, but it also allows us to deliver better high quality services to the seniors. So please look for how to continue to support the seniors budget going forward. Part of what getting a program manager does for us in this division is it allows Director Rinaldi really to not be in the weeds with managing sections, but to really get into the long-term planning that we must do to face the reality of an increased 30. I think it's actually he's too polite to correct me, but I think it's a 33% increase by 2030. So anyway, just wanted to make that point, and we can move on to the Youth and Family Services Division, which I know Councilwoman Villarreal, you have some questions on. And is there a slide for the Youth and Family Services Division? Thank you. Great. We'll stand for questions on this slide.
Okay, then I think we can stop sharing that screen because we do have that in our budget books and on the presentation. So questions from the committee? Councilwoman Villarreal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Director. Where are you? Director Sanchez. There you are on the Hollywood Square. I just had a question for clarification about the children and youth grants. And it says 1.6 million. So is this an additional amount designated along with that percentage of GRT required? Is this like an additional amount you're allocating for that?
So Madam Chair, Councilor Villarreal, so as the GRT has increased for the city, the Children Youth Commission and actually the Human Services Committee receive a small percentage of that increase. And so with this new budget, we've actually been able to increase our amount of funding for both of those committees. And so what we're going to do after this fiscal year is go back to the commission and allocate that additional funding into the community to support youth programs, because we did have a dip in GRT with COVID. And so now we're able to recover and provide more grant funding to support youth programs.
Great. And so the 1.6, is that the new GRT increase?
So
Or is
Madam
that a-
Chair, Councilor Villarreal, that's correct. It would be the new increase.
And are you all thinking that you'll use this in the new grant cycle? Because I'm not sure where you all are. I know it's a, what is it, 2 to 3 year grant cycle?
Mhm.
Are you in the middle, or did you just finish one? I can't remember which one you just finished.
So Madam Chair, Councilor Villarreal, we are actually on a rotating cycle between the two, and we just finished as of last night our allocation of human services grant funding, and a press release will be following shortly, as well as the contracts through the routing process. The Children and Youth Commission will actually be doing their next round of grant funding next fiscal year. But what the commission has planned for this additional GRT allocation is actually increasing our innovation and small grant funds. So we'll be opening up that opportunity to the community starting July 1.
Great, that's great to hear. That'll be probably the most you've ever had for the small grant awards, correct?
That's correct. We're very excited.
Great, thank you. And then so Health and Human Services, that amount 1.3 is the new GRT increase. Will you be able to fold that into, I guess you won't, because you just finished the grant making decisions?
Well,
For the-
Madam Chair, Councilor Villarreal, we work really closely with finance and their team. So when we received our budget allocation amounts, or the, I guess, proposed new funding, when we made our decisions this last round, we actually were able to include that additional GRT. So for the first time, I want to say in the Human Services Committee 20 years, we actually awarded $1.2 million, which is the absolute highest we've ever awarded. The committee does
awesome.
around 800,000. So, you know, they're incredibly happy and excited, and we can't wait to have those contracts come to you all, and you can see what great work is going to be done in the community.
Great, I look forward to seeing those grant what do you call it, recommendations. Thank you. And so what's that time period for that grant cycle? Is it 2 years for the Health and Human Services?
So that will be actually 3 years.
Okay,
Grant cycle.
got it. All right. And then one other question was with the CYFD grant fund services for juvenile justice program. The 85,000, that's new monies added to what had already been allocated. So remember, we made some allocation recently. And then I don't know if you could explain, does that come from CYFD funds?
So Madam Chair, Councilor Villarreal, the city of Santa Fe actually applies for CYFD funding. And so we're currently going to be entering in the 4th year of a 4-year contract. And so that allocation is, essentially set for 4 years. So we did do an amendment to the CYFD contract. And I believe that's what you're referring to, is we created a new community restorative justice program.
That's what I'm thinking. Yes, thank you for the clarity. Great, that's great to hear. More funding that will go out for our youth. All right, that's all I have. Thank you for your answers. Oops.
Thank you, Counselor Cassett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Julie, I just have one question about MIAB funding. Prior to the pandemic, MIAB had funding allocated it to do participatory budgeting. I am not sure if it would come from this budget anyhow, as it was supposed to be a dedicated capital projects, but I'm curious if you have an update on whether or not we have been able to restore that funding for MIAB.
So Madam Chair, Councilor Cassett, that's a really great question. There is, and maybe I should defer this question to Director McCoy. I'll do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Councilor Cassett. This is one of the initiatives that we were very excited about prior to the pandemic. I remember presenting in front of MIAB. At that time, pre-pandemic, the funds were not utilized, and in the middle of the pandemic, they were reverted. into the capital projects fund. That being said, we are looking forward, as soon as we wrap up our operating budget, to jump into a rigorous rounds in coordination with Director Wheeler and all of our colleagues, all of the other directors, the folks that you see on this screen and the others that have presented in front of you, to start reviewing and prioritizing the capital projects. We've talked a little bit, I believe, yesterday about priorities and how they're set forward and all of the different funding sources that are available for the capital projects, deferred maintenance, new projects, new buildings that we would have coming online. So that being said, that any additional funding for rounds of participatory budgeting would be coming forthcoming.
Okay, wonderful. I'm glad to hear that it is still on everybody's radar. I do not chair MIAB, or I'm no longer the council liaison, not the chair for MIAB, and that role has been passed over to my wonderful District 4 colleague, Councilor Chavez. But I do still want to really advocate for that funding to go in that direction when we are discussing that budget. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Let me, before I go back to Councilwoman Villarreal, I want to just stay on that for a minute. Was it always capital money? It wasn't ever general fund?
Madam Chair, Councilor, the funding source was general fund. However, because we were encouraging the use to one-time projects of capital that are capital in nature. So with participatory budgeting, Madam Chair, particularly the first rounds of participatory budgeting, generally, if we look at others, our counterparts in other cities, their first rounds have been with capital projects in nature. I'm familiar with the City of Boston youth participatory budgeting program that was started there during my tenure. And the initial rounds of projects were capital in nature. There was even a very similar to the funding that we used for the for the CARES Act money with the public Wi-Fi, very similar projects like that, but definitely capital in nature.
Okay, because I thought I had remembered that it was general fund the first time it came through. So I also just want to lend my support and my voice to this. I think it's very important. It's an incredible tool, I believe, to empower youth and to help them understand that they have a real stake in their community, to be able to participate in where dollars are spent and prioritized. So I too want to see us come back to this. I know we had to step away during the pandemic when we didn't have the resources, but I too am very interested in this program and the fact that it's coming back. So, okay, Councilwoman Villarreal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm following up on the MIAB question too, because we actually initiated that with the help of finding funding through Director McCoy's assistance when I was actually the liaison. And at that time, there was actually interest, not just capital, but potentially programmatic. And so I want to make sure that when we put that forth, if there is a potential for the youth in that group to want to think about programmatic and or they have other ideas related to programmatic possibilities, I want to make sure that if it's coming from capital, they're not prevented from using that funding for that reason or for that purpose. And I don't know if Director McCoy can answer that. If it's coming from capital projects, would they be limited to what they can do?
Sounds like it's capital oriented at the moment. So I think if we want it to be programmatic, that may need to be the next round or an addition if we can be successful with this first piece. But Director McCoy, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Madam Chair, Councilor, I concur with what the Chair Romero just said. Thank you. We're very excited about this, and that that MIAB still has an interest in this. So we look forward to future conversations on this.
Great. Thank you.
All right, sounds like we need to work on that piece, but let's see if we can make the first round successful. All right, other questions from the committee? If not, back to you, Director Ochoa.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you very much. I think we've concluded the community services budget presentation.
Okay, so wait, sorry. I believe I need to take a vote on that, correct? Director McCoy, so we need a motion on the community services budget.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, wait. I hope who made the motion there? Was that you, Councilor Cassett?
I seconded Councilwoman Villarreal.
All right. Sorry, it was just a smash of voices. All right. So we have the motion by Councilwoman Villarreal, the second by Councilor Cassett to approve the community services budget. If we could get a roll call, please. Maybe.
There we go. Sorry. Counselor Villarreal,
Yes.
Counselor Rivera,
Yes.
Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell,
Yes.
Counselor Romero Worth.
Yes. All right. Now we are on back to Director Ochoa. I believe now we're on to recreation, correct?
Thank you. Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, here we go.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, as you know, the Recreation Division Director position is currently vacant. I had very much hoped to be able to announce that we have named a director. We made an offer, but unfortunately, that offer was declined. And so we are still searching for our Recreation Division Director. As many of you know, Gino Rinaldi was good enough to serve as interim rec director for a while. He's no longer in that role, but has a lot of knowledge of the division. And also, many of you know that I have been looking at, and we've been looking at as a team, coming before you with a sort of a second level reorg, where we actually propose putting recreation under community services. In many ways, our recreation centers are community centers. In fact, you know, the Genoveva Chavez Center is a community center in Maine. And for many reasons, there's a lot of synergies there. So for that reason, Maria Sanchez Tucker, I have some very good sports on my team here, has been also helping me manage the recreation department in hopes that that will in fact become a reality. So as you know, our recreation division is extremely important to the community. We hear all the time from constituents on what they need and want and what they like and don't like about our centers. We have, of course, our gemstone, our Chavez Center, and then we also have the fitness centers, Salvador Perez, Fort Marcy, and in the summer, Bicentennial Pool. We also have under our recreation division, the youth programs run by Melissa Bustos. I believe Melissa is in the wings if there are any questions for her on the youth programs. These have a special place in my heart as my kids went through these programs and it enabled me to work while living in Santa Fe. These programs offer after school and summer programming in coordination with the schools for ages 6 to 17. And we look to growing them in the future when we add our teen center and growing all the offerings that we're able to give our youth. And really when we think about the prevention to intervention continuum, there's nothing that's more important than the activities that we're able to provide our youth, the healthy activities that build their protective factors. So with that, we can go to the next slide. So the recreation division budget is before you and the total amount of 8.5 million. We've increased our investment in recreation by 1.8 million, which is great. As we know, many of our services and our positions were frozen during pandemic. The recreation staff does an incredible job, and they are so happy. They were among the first people to be very, very eager to open up to the public. And we see that they will be getting, along with others in the city, our 8% salary increase, that we see that they've had to do a lot of overtime, and that we've increased their overtime allocation to 52,000, or by 52,000, excuse me. And then we also have an increase in contractual services and under consulting. We are investing in making sure all of the facilities are up to date. Our facilities division within Public Works has been an absolute joy to work with. We've met regularly with facilities to make sure that we're getting out ahead of any repairs that need to be made and any capital improvements that need to be made. And that's working really, really well, thanks to Director Wheeler and her team and all the folks in REC who take the time to be communicative about all of the maintenance issues that are seen. And then finally, there's a large increase in utilities for recreational facilities, water. And that is just a necessary cost of doing business as costs increase. One thing to note here is that we are transferring out a marketing and special events coordinator position that was vacant. I'm very glad to be lending it to Director Mihalsik's team. We know that that team has supported us greatly as we do our citywide events, and this position, which sort of was in a limbo when Parks and Rec were divided, had never really needed to be filled, and glad to, I mean, we're never glad to lose a position, but we're glad that it's going to good use in constituent services. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So first we have our admin line items. We see some increases in repairs and maintenance. Again, that continued investment in making sure the facilities are up to date. And we see the other operating costs, which can, I think the water, if I'm not mistaken, comes under that, and that's part of that increase. In the next slide, I believe we'll look onto the GCCC budget. Again, investment in making sure we're up to date with our repairs and our maintenance. We see some added supplies in that budget as we're able to offer more youth programs. That's part of what you see there. And then, the decreases really have to do with those citywide risk assessments for insurance. And I believe that's all we have to say about that one. Next slide. Next slide, please. If we had another slide, I thought we did on the other sites. Again, mistake.
Mr. McCoy, do you know?
There we go.
There we go. No.
Thank you. No, oh, sorry.
That's not
Madam
quite.
Chair, councilors, these are the slides that were included in your budget book that summarize by department, category, and division and fund. With that, there are two main divisions in recreation, admin, as Director Ochoa reviewed with you, as well as the Chavez Center Fund.
So my mistake, I'm sorry, Director McCoy, the admin budget includes all of the non-GCCC sites. You can see that I'm not the rec division director, but and my team is too nice to jump in, but jump in.
I was going to.
Okay.
I need a cane, they can pull me off the Zoom with. But with that, we'll stand for questions on the recreation budget.
No worries. Questions from the committee? Councilwoman Villarreal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I heard you say about how you're structuring it differently. So does that mean in the meantime, Dr. Sanchez-Tucker will cover that role for the rec director until you get another position, or explain that, like the kind of time frame you're looking at?
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Villarreal, thanks for the question. Yes, until we have a rec director in the position, Maria Sanchez-Tucker will cover that role, and currently staff are reporting to her in that role. She's learning more than she probably ever wanted to know about recreation. But I think the skill set of managing libraries, managing senior centers, facilities where our community come to gather and the wonderful programs that are offered within them, there's a commonality there. And so I know that staff have been really happy, first of all, to have had Director Rinaldi, stewarding them for a time period. And now with Maria, again, this is the next level reorganization that will need to have ordinance changes. So we'll need to come before you for you to approve all of that in the future. Right now, it's our working definition of reorg 2.0. And again, we've had some great candidates for rec director. Unfortunately, nobody yet filling that role. I think it's always good. Maria can kick me under the Zoom, but it's always good, director of a large department, to learn the operations in as much detail as possible of all of the divisions within the operation. And Maria is very much doing that, jumping in with great ideas around innovative solutions to something I imagine we'll get asked about, our lifeguard issue, among many other things.
Yep. Well, thank you, Director Sanchez Tucker, for taking that on. I'm not a fan of always doing these double duties, and neither is Councilor Cassett. So yeah, we hope we can get that resolved soon. And was there any, for the folks that didn't take that job, did they explain or say any further about why they decided not to? Did they give any reasons?
Madam Chair, I'll defer that to Maria.
We had a candidate that was out of state, and I thank you, Councilor Villarreal. We had a candidate that was out of state, and I think maybe it was just not the correct opportunity for them. And I think right now what we need to do is repost the position and reach out
budget hearings. Can I call you back?
Professional organizations and really do a recruitment to find a qualified candidate that and really, if you know of candidates, please help us spread the word about that position opening.
Was there any talk about the pay from other candidates?
Madam Chair, Councilor Villarreal, the pay is probably an issue, but not one that we could satisfy with our current budget.
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Villarreal, we did have a candidate for whom the pay was a factor. I think, similar to looking at what the equivalent positions are sort of within the state and even nationally. I think the classification and comp study will be very helpful. Hopefully we won't have to wait that long to get a rec director, but it's no longer Parks and Rec. So it's no longer the enormous department it was. We may have people who come in kind of expecting that level of salary, but it's really now that the recreation division is under is about 88 people. It's and the facilities, the number of facilities that are involved, it's really more on par with what senior services is or what the libraries are. And so we're really trying to see it as kind of on par with all of that in coordination with Director Salazar and HR. And so for the second candidate, the pay was not an issue. It was a significant increase from what she was getting, but I think it was, as Maria said, the out of state, the big move, and she wasn't ultimately ready to do that. So we'll keep searching and finding the right people. If you guys know of anybody, send them to the city website when it'll be reposted very soon.
All right, thank you for that. And then in general, from the spreadsheets, at 27 vacant positions, but I don't know if you said what that essentially entailed, those vacant positions.
So Madam Chair, Councilwoman Villarreal, and my staff will correct me or help me here. We see the bulk of those vacancies in the natatorium realm, in lifeguards, in swim instructors. We did have some, I believe, recreation coordinators that were in what Gino, I think, called the red dungeon of unfundedness last year, which are thankfully now funded and come out of the dungeon. And so, we didn't have since we weren't open as much need for staff, and we do now in this current fiscal year. So we're struggling to get on top of that. But yeah, mostly those vacancies are in the realm of the natatorium.
Not front desk folks.
No, not so much.
Okay. And then the other question was the overtime. Find it. There was an overtime number. Let's see, what is it? I don't have it in front of me, but there was. Can you just say a little bit more about that amount? Oh, it's
52,000.
Thank you. What that entailed?
Madam Chair, Councilman Villarreal, we're seeing, especially as we have high demand, for example, for expanded pool hours, but we don't have adequate staff. Our staff is stepping up to provide additional hours, as they're really eager to do, but we need to do it via overtime. We do have some great sort of solutions in the works around our lifeguard conundrum. I don't know if we want to take the time now, Madam Chair, to mention some of that, but we could go into more detail if anyone would like to hear that.
I'd like to hear.
I'm seeing nods of yes.
So one of the things that we have looked to do is think of the bodies of water that we have to manage and all the people who staff them as essentially one section of the division. And in order to really do that effectively, we're working with HR to create an aquatics facilities and program manager position. Once we have that person will do scheduling for the entire recreation universe. And so people won't be as sort of stuck in one facility for one thing. All of the ability to troubleshoot facilities issues will be held centrally in that way, not just as it is now in either GCCC or the other pool facilities. We think of these, even though GCCC is an enterprise organization, it's still a community center in many ways. And so we really need to share resources between pools. That's one of the things we're doing. And in fact, our current natatorium manager, Matt Cottle, is on a temporary salary increase to try out that role and see if it can make a difference in terms of how we schedule. And we're very excited about that and thankful to him for agreeing to do that and to HR for working with us. In addition, Maria, do you want to talk about the trainee position as well that staff has helped create?
Yes, thank you, Director Ochoa. We're just trying new strategies to think of ways to improve the situation. We have to try innovative things. And one was to establish a lifeguard trainee position where we would have strong swimmers who had interest in becoming a lifeguard, but they did not have the certification. This would allow them to come in, be hired by the city, go through that process, train, and go through the certification process while being trained and learning about the pool facilities, giving a pathway to becoming a lifeguard. And so this is a pilot project to see how it will work, and hopefully it will help us, recruit more lifeguards in the future. We also are hoping to incorporate more swimming lessons so that we can start working with children and younger kids that can be trained and looking forward to becoming a lifeguard as they grow. So we're trying as many different innovative ways to handle these issues that we've been faced with.
And Madam Chair, I see Mr. Rinaldi has something.
Madam Chair, the other thing that we found was that doing certification training for a community, offering it out there, setting that up is probably one of the biggest ways that many of the other pools get their folks and us too. So we're going to be doing more of that, trying to schedule trainings, get people lifeguard certified, in hopes that they'll take a job with us.
And Madam Chair, counselors, the lifeguard trainee is currently advertised. I don't know if we should use budget hearings to promote positions, but if anyone out there has a young one or any person of any age who's interested in becoming a lifeguard, the positions are open and you don't have to have your certification. I think Chief Joy began his career in public service as a lifeguard. So just know it can take you far.
I love that. That's a good recruitment tool. Thanks for that. The descriptions of the plan for that, I think that makes sense. And especially the swimming aspect. Swimming lessons is a good pipeline to getting lifeguards. So great to hear that. The other question was just if you could just elaborate on the contractual services and what that includes, the 227,000.
Manuel, I'm going to pull on you. Do you have can you help us with that one?
Yes, give me a second.
Takes a village to run the rec department. And I'm sure there are people in the rec staff listening right now who are screaming at us but can't be heard because they know the answer to that question. So Susie, if you're out there, sorry.
If there's just a general sense, go ahead.
Yeah,
sorry.
their security is a large one on that also for security over at the GCCC. And
We may need to get back to you all on that one.
yeah,
That's fine.
Active
No
net
problem.
software.
Software.
There's
The registration software.
yeah, there's contracts for maintenance of the ice arena, mechanical, and as well as some of the other types of mechanical stuff that we have. Those are primary, the larger ones, and as
Okay.
well as the oversight of the equipment, the inspection, repair of your, exercise equipment.
Got it. Okay, thanks for that. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Never thought about starting public service as a lifeguard. I was a lifeguard. And so I guess Chief Joy and I both started that way. And now look where we are.
And if you ever want to come back, Madam Chair, to the we welcome you with open arms.
We do have temp openings.
All right, there you go. I can moonlight. Counselor Rivera.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are we back to pre-pandemic services, Director Ochoa?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, we are not. Our staffing challenges do not allow us to be open as many hours as we would like to be open. And that's just the sad fact. HR has been fabulous working with us on rapid hire events, and we continue to come at it from all angles, both with pools and everything else. But no, sadly, we haven't bounced back quite yet.
All right, and I saw something recently, I don't remember where, but it talked about a discount on memberships at GCC. Is this for just GCC or is this for all the rec centers, including Fort Marcy and Cell P?
It is, thank you, Madam Chair and Councilor Rivera. It is for all of the rec centers. The other two locations are marketing to their users as well, so it will be available to all three.
Thanks. So if you get a membership at GCC, is that good at the other rec centers as well?
No, not at this time.
Okay, so it's only at the rec center that you specifically get a membership to?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, yes, that's correct.
Mr. Rinaldi may.
Oh, Mr. Rinaldi,
Yeah.
Director Rinaldi.
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, it's a little bit of a moving target. The answer would be yes, if all the facilities are open. if we shut down Fort Marcy this summer due to the roof repair over the natatorium, which we're going to have to, then that would mean that the users at Fort Marcy could technically go over to GCC and use the services over at GCC while that repair. But once all facilities are open, then the answer is that they would only be using it at the facility. Like GCC would be GCC, SALP would be at SALP.
All right. So at the recent event at the convention center for our employees, I learned that many insurances pay for memberships to gyms. Are we in a position to take advantage of that as well? Not only from our own insurance, I guess, but from insurances from the state, the county, anywhere else?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, I think that's a really interesting thing to explore, and I think we'd have to work on that with our city attorney and our finance department to see if that could be a source of revenue for the recreation division. I don't know that we've explored that to date.
Okay, so we're not currently doing that.
Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, Councilor no.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear about it myself. So maybe something to look at to increase the revenue, since it still is, especially GCC still is an enterprise fund. I heard a little bit about lifeguards, but can you give us an update and let us know? Bicentennial traditionally has been open on Memorial Day. Are we in a position to keep that date, or give us an update?
Chair, Councilor Rivera, in coordinating with Public Works, no, we will not be able to open on Memorial Day. My understanding from Director Wheeler is that the new target is Father's Day, June 17th, I believe, or so. That has to do with supply chain issues that were really unforeseeable in the planning. Not so much, the contractor's work was on schedule. I believe it's actually the cement. They couldn't get the cement in time to dry by Memorial Day. So they'd had to push it up a couple more weeks.
Okay.
But once we do that, as Director Rinaldi said, we will have adequate staffing for opening the pool this summer. And that is really because we have to close Fort Marcy to do a roof repair. And so the lifeguard staff from there will staff the Bicentennial pool.
All right. So if that wasn't happening at Fort Marcy, we wouldn't have the staffing available.
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, correct. Although between now and then we'd be doing what we're doing, which is hustling to fill those lifeguard seats.
Sure. Are temp positions like lifeguards, are they eligible for the hiring incentive?
They are not. They are not as temp positions.
Okay. And I know you get half and then half at 6 months, but would they, I guess would be something to, explore with HR, is to see if there were any hiring incentives for lifeguards. I think that would be a good way to get them in. They're only here for maybe 3.5 months, and then they go back to school or go back to whatever they're doing. But maybe something worth exploring. Just a question I had as we were talking about lifeguards. Ms. McCoy, GCC is still enterprise funded. How much is the city still subsidizing GCC on an annual basis, more or less?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, thank you for that question. It's a great question. GCCC is still an enterprise fund, and they are subsidized by the general fund. The largest subsidy that we did have in place was for the current fiscal year, a transfer of other funds to the tune of 1.6 million. In the current fiscal year in FY23, that subsidy, the subsidy into recreation is about 600,000, a little over 600,000.
Okay, thank you. And then I don't know if this is for Director Tucker or Rinaldi or Director Ochoa, but the fixes and improvements that we made to the roof and the dehumidifiers at GCC, have they worked? Have they, do we still have leaks dripping onto the basketball courts and into the gym, or have those fixes done what we expected them to do?
No. Madam Chairman, Councilor Rivera, at the Fort Marcy Center, where there was significant roof issues, we have had the contractor come in and they've repaired redid the roof actually over the gymnasium and the fitness area, and that's working. Unfortunately, and I wish we had more, we need more rain to test it, but because anytime there, we get a little rain, sometimes there is areas that there may have been some problems, and then we get the contractor to go back up, and we've done that once already. At the GCC, they've been working on, like I said, the HVAC systems and the dehumidifier systems, and that's working. And they do have sometimes some issues, and Public Works has been great in getting B&D over there to repair them as quickly or diagnose it and do what needs to be done. And that's the nature of facilities. I mean, and these are, especially the GCC, it's a massive, as you all know, a massive facility, and it's a contradiction in environments, and those types of contradictions cause some strange things to happen with our mechanical stuff. So, but we are getting on that stuff. The efforts, when I sat here before you all last year, the efforts between Public Works and Recreation over trying to address these issues has been tremendous, and I publicly will thank Public Works for all their help in terms of assisting us to get what needed to be done. So I feel like we're in a better place, but there is still stuff that needs to be addressed. And the biggest holdback continues to be, funding, but we're getting on those things. The GRT tax or the bond that's going to be coming up will address some of that stuff, and it's a continual process.
Yeah, let me ask my question a little different way. Last time I was there, there were piles of towels all over the gym floor, all over the running track, and in the weight room area. Are there still piles of towels to absorb the drips from the roof?
You're on mute, Gino. Gino, you're on mute.
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, you're referring to the GCC, right?
Yes.
Just so that we're clear. As far as I know, that's not happening. But again, like I said, we have issues sometimes that there's breakdowns, there's problems, and we have to address them. And we bring in the contractors as well as Public Works, and we get on it. But if you know something different today, please let me know, because I don't know of any problem today.
Okay.
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, if I may add, when we have a complex manager in GCCC that becomes funded in fiscal year 23, that is going to be super helpful, because that'll allow us to have more eyes and ears on the facilities management. Right now, Jerry Schilling under Jeremy Perea is doing double duty in a lot of ways. And so getting that position to help focus exclusively on keeping eyes on the facilities, coordinating closely with Public Works, planning for the future is going to be tremendously helpful.
Yeah. Great, thanks. And I have to say this, but just thank you. I've heard from constituents recently about really compliments from staff at GCC, and the names that were specifically mentioned to me were Jeremy Perea, Melissa Bustos, and Anya Alarid. So, great job to them. I'm sure there's many people there that do a great job every day doing what they do, but those are the names that were specifically mentioned to me. So please pass along my appreciation to them and the great work that they've been doing. Thank you,
Thank
Madam
you so
Chair.
much, Counselor. And Anya's wonderful, and she's in our Senior Services Division. So good work all around.
Is her office at GCC?
Yes. No.
Oh, maybe that's why. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Lindell.
Thank you, Chair, and you can add my name to the list of people that started out as a lifeguard. So it's a big start. I would just, in remembering a few years back, I think we should all be thankful that we're not having to approve $400,000 to take care of a pigeon situation at the GCC. So that's great progress. I mean, that was a very painful $400,000 to spend, but that's what we did. So moving on from that, I would encourage a chat about a reorg and recreation, that we look to people that have a professional background in recreation. There are people all over the country that have made this a career and a profession, and I think that it would be proper to hire someone that does have that educational background and experience. So I would be watching that and encouraging about that. I appreciate the efforts that have been put into the pools and the lifeguards. Do we have do we drug test our lifeguards? We do. I see Gino nodding.
Counselor Lindell, we do.
Well, I don't know if that's ever a discussion, but I think when you're dealing with 17, 18, 19, and 20-year-olds, that's one of the reasons that we probably don't have some lifeguards, that they go somewhere else, that they don't get drug tested. And I'm not saying that we should be, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be, but I am saying that I think we should look into that and see what policies are in other places, because I think that that's one of the big reasons that lifeguards that we train go and work other places. So I think it's worth spending a little time looking at. And like I said, I'm not advocating one way or the other, but I think that it's definitely worth looking at, particularly cannabis, now that it is legalized. And I would encourage the department to do that, because I think we do train a lot of people and then they go and they work somewhere else. So I would ask that we would look into that. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Cassett.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I really want to thank the rec staff, especially with the creativity around lifeguards. That has been a huge issue in our community. And then to echo what Councilor Rivera said, I had an opportunity to speak with Jeremy Perea, and I was very impressed with the work that he's been doing. And so I definitely want to make sure that my gratitude is passed along to him. I did have a question about swim lessons. This is a large topic of conversation within the young kid parents community in Santa Fe. And I was at Fort Marcy with Susie, another wonderful staff member in recreation as well. discussing swim lessons, and it was like, oh yeah, better get here at 6:30 in the morning to sign up for swim lessons if you want to get a spot. One, I don't know what parent with a toddler is getting anywhere at 6:30 in the morning. I mean, some of them are, they're very impressive. But I don't know if there's a way that we can do online signups for swim lessons to make this easier for parents who are trying to register, because the fact that, from my understanding, what I was told is that you have to show up in person and you got to get there early in order to get a spot. Am I incorrect in that from what I've heard?
Madam Chair, Councillor Cassett, we partner with the Northern Aquatics team to provide the swim lessons, and they do have an online sign up. And so I'm not quite sure if Fort Marcy has a different procedure from the regular NAC sign up. So
Okay.
let me look into that, and I will provide more information about that, because there is a possibility to sign up online. So I will send out more information. We do need to find ways to expand swimming lessons, because we know that there is a huge demand. Parents really want to get their kids swimming again. And so we're working on that as well. So let me double check to make sure that there is an online for all of the swimming lessons that we provide.
That would be great. I know that definitely pre-pandemic, that was absolutely a thing. I remember a number of my friends lining up at Fort Marcy bright and early in the morning to try to get a spot. So, and then in regards to expanding swim lessons, I know that part of that challenge is really getting staffed up with lifeguards. And I'm curious if we've looked at contracts with any private entity that is qualified and providing swim lessons, and potentially bringing that in as a temporary solution while we are continuing to work on getting staffed up with lifeguards.
Madam Chair, Councillor Cassett, yes, the Northern Aquatic, we contract with them to conduct the swim lessons. So we partner with them.
Okay.
And so that is something that we're currently working to expand and find ways to be able to provide more swimming lessons at many hours that parents are able to take their kids to swimming lessons. So we're looking at that.
Madam Chair, Councillor Cassett, in terms of using contracted lifeguard services to staff our regular hours, is that part of what you're asking?
I hadn't thought of that. I was
then not.
talking
Okay,
about
I
swim
misunderstood the
lessons.
question. Sorry, I misunderstood the question.
I don't know if that's a possibility. We use it. I know we do.
I don't think it is.
Okay. But it was more the swim lessons piece. And really being able to expand that, as I know that's a really high need. The other one that I just want to make sure that I throw out, it's not currently in the budget. I know that there's a lot of complications for it in a given pandemic, but pre-pandemic, I was having a conversation with then Parks and Rec Director about returning to the child care services at GCCC. They did exist at the time that I was not paying attention to childcare, because I was barely not a child myself, but I know that this is another huge draw in the community. I know that one private fitness center just got a lot of members simply because they had childcare offered. So as we continue to grow the recreation division, I really would highly encourage how we can look into providing childcare services. I think that there is a huge demand for that, and that really actually could help drive some more revenue, as well as I would also agree with Councilor Rivera that exploring how we can tap into that insurance market would be something I would very much be in favor of. So I will leave it at that. Again, thank you all so much for your work. This is another recreation, my goodness, throughout the pandemic. That's been a huge challenge. I know that there's been a lot of mixed reviews in the community about should they be open, should they not, and they're not open enough. And kudos to the recreation staff for weathering this challenging time as well as they did. So thank you all.
Thank you. Do we have a motion on this budget?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion from Councilor Cassett, second from Councilor Villarreal. Can we get a roll call, please?
Yes, Councilor Villarreal. You're muted, Councilor.
It looks like she can't unmute is what I am
Oh,
gathering
okay.
from her. From her.
How about would a thumbs up do? Okay. Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Counselor Rivera,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell,
Yes.
Counselor Romero Worth.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we are going to move on to the Emergency Management and Safety Division.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Here to present this budget is Emergency Manager Brian Williams.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman. Councilors, I want to start by saying how much I appreciate your expressions of support that I've received this last year. Obviously, it's been a huge challenge for our small little department with this unprecedented experience with a worldwide pandemic. Additionally, I want to reach out and thank all of my fellow directors whom without their roll up their sleeves, help me out attitude, we would not have been able to accomplish many of the missions that we needed to accomplish to move through this difficult experience as smoothly as we have.
Brian, can I just stop you right there for a minute, please?
Certainly.
If we could keep an eye out again for Counselor Villarreal and just wait for a second while she restarts her computer.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Right now.
Is she there?
Yes, she just jumped on.
Okay.
Yeah, she's on now.
Okay, great. Then we can continue. Thank you, Brian.
Welcome. Welcome back, Councilor Villarreal. Again, the Emergency Management and Safety is a small department with a big mission. As you can see, we have an Office of Emergency Management and the Office of Safety. Can we move to the next slide, please? As you can see, I have a whopping 6 positions. We have 2 vacancies. We're currently in the process of putting the finishing touches on posting one of those vacant positions, and we'll hope to move forward with the second position within the next couple of months. You can see here in the highlights, obviously there's the 8% salary increase. We have asked for some contractual funding. Of particular note, I have asked for funding to conduct a wildfire evacuation analysis. What our intention is to use our SIM table, which is a dynamic GIS tool, to analyze the evacuation pattern throughout the wildland interface area in Santa Fe in order to determine the best catchments and also to identify potential areas for improvement where we may see bottlenecks or other issues with evacuation. This is clearly a high priority for this department. Something to keep in mind as you look at my budget, we do manage a number of grants that come from the Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, which pass through to other departments. So for example, this large amount in out-of-state travel and registration does not represent funding for my 6 employees or my 4 employees, but rather a grant that we receive that supports the training of airport firefighters. So with that, I will stand for any questions.
Questions from the committee? Councilor Rivera.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Williams, several years ago, I think we used to receive some funding for, I think it was half of your salary, I believe it was, from the state. Is that still occurring, or are we funding this entirely through city budget?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, thank you. That's a good question. Both my position and the emergency management specialist are general fund funded. What we've run into with it's called the Emergency Management Performance Grant, is that the grant cycle is such that it gets basically they get it awarded in the spring. The grant agreements don't come out until the fall. By the time we get to the point of being, going through the council and committees to get the grant agreement approved, it's now in the spring. And by then there's not really enough time left to make good on the grant. Unfortunately, the state has elected to, although the money comes to them in a 2-year grant cycle, they pass it on to the subrecipients in a 1-year cycle. So we do have this challenge of being able to take advantage of the money in the time that they give us.
All right.
Mr. Councilor Rivera, if I may add, I think what you're seeing in the fact that these positions are general funded, in addition to a solution to the sort of cyclical and difficult nature of funding them via grants, is a very important commitment on the part of the city to having an emergency management response that's hardwired. And if we had not had that through recent years, I think we would have been in a very different position than we are now. So I'm grateful to Mr. Williams and Kyle Morgan, our emergency management specialists, for the work they do, and grateful to the city and the council for the continued support.
Thank you, Director Ochoa. So along with the wildfire evacuation analysis, Mr. Williams, are we also looking at how this would affect city government in general? Like, are we in a position to be able to pay salaries if something happened to the infrastructure? Are we able to continue with city functions in general? Has there been an analysis of really city functions in the case of really what is probably our most likely large emergency situation, which would be a wildfire?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, again, a very good question. What you're talking about in emergency management speak is continuity of operations. When we look at COOP, we don't necessarily look at it in terms of what the threat is that's driving the necessity for the COOP. So does it really matter whether it's a fire or the pandemic or whatever the threat is that's generating the necessity for COOP, but rather what are the consequences? We have asked for and received a grant award, which with Mary's help, we're moving forward to get it in place to do 2 planning efforts. One is the update of the city emergency operations plan, of which an annex is COOP planning. Now, much of or piece of that effort we developed as a consequence of the threat of staffing crisis. You may recall back when the Delta variant was at its worst, there was some very serious considerations as to what we would do if we started losing large numbers of city personnel. So there has been some groundwork developed in terms of crisis staffing. And as I pointed out, there is this update for the city emergency operations plan, of which there is an annex for COOP. The second planning effort is what we call THIRA, the Threat Hazard Identification and Resource Assessment, where we look at the types of threats that we would encounter in the city, what the consequences of those threats might present, what is our capability to respond? And so we're looking to identify gaps. And so both of these plans are requirements for eligibility for the various grants, including EMPG, but they also represent a very important tool, both in terms of for emergency operations and the ability to have a document of basically conceptually how we will operate in the event of an emergency. But in the case of the THIRA, it helps us identify what kind of bad things can happen and where are we postured in terms of responding. So that enables us to identify gaps. And that's a very important endeavor for us to be able to fulfill our overall responsibilities for preparedness.
All right. And then do we still have an EOC there at Midtown, and is it appropriately equipped and funded?
Yes, we do. It is a shared facility, so we're able to use the room both for training, but also for emergency operations. And yes, we are equipped and prepared to activate.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Councilwoman Villarreal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I hope this works now. It's not ideal, but it works better than what was going on with my laptop. So hopefully you can hear me okay.
We can.
Thank you, Director Williams. Just wanted to ask you a little bit about the folks that work with you now. There's six staff people. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, Councilor Villarreal, my department is funded for 6 positions, of which 4 are filled. 2 emergency management and 2 in safety.
2 emergency management and 2 in safety. Okay.
And the 2 vacancies are in safety.
Got it. And the 2 vacancies are in safety. Just wanted to give a shout out to the safety folks. The CPR training that I did was excellent. And I hope they continue that for staff access. I just think that's integral to what we need to know. And I've never been able to take a CPR class. So just wanted to thank you all again for that. Can you elaborate more on the contracts? It's $317,000, and I'm excluding the wildlife evacuation analysis. Can you tell me what the other contracts are?
They're contractual services for safety. So we have a number of contracts that support safety training operations, and also you should call it safety consulting. Spine Solutions works with the safety division to help identify when we have, for example, if we have somebody who hurts their back on the job, Spine Solutions can step in and help us identify what were the ergonomics of that caused that injury, and how we can prepare to prevent it. So there are a number of contracts that are utilized by safety.
Including the CPR
Yes.
company.
And contractors to support CPR.
Okay.
Various trainings, not just CPR.
Got it. Yes. All right. Thanks so much. That's all I have.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second. Motion from Counselor Lindell, a second from Counselor Cassett to approve the emergency services budget. Can we get a roll call, please?
Counselor Villarreal,
Yes.
Counselor Rivera,
Madam Chair, just clarification, is this the emergency management and safety budget?
Yes, sorry, I didn't have my agenda pulled up, so I went off the top of my head. Shouldn't do that.
Right. Thank you. Yes.
Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell,
Yes.
and Counselor Romero Worth.
Yes. All right. So the motion to approve the emergency management and safety budget has been approved, not to be redundant. And we are now moving on to fire, it looks like, since our fire chief has just joined us. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chief Brian Moya to present the fire budget.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Yes, so this will be my first budget as a fire chief. It has been a tremendous beginning for me. We've done a lot in this budget. I've done a lot of adding positions. We're able to add 3 new FTEs to this budget, and I also transferred one of my FTEs to IT. So now total in this is I have a total of 205 FTEs, and my current vacancy rate is 11% with that one. Madam Chair, do you want me to do slides? I don't need the slides, but did you want me to put up the slides?
I think we want to do that mostly so that people watching can see what you've got there and follow along a little bit.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I'll ask my staff to start sharing the slides if they can. If not, I can pull them up too. Here we go.
Thank you.
So, Madam Chair, members of the committee, this is what I was just talking about. So, in a sense, I'm in charge. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, sorry.
Okay, so this is slide 2. These are my big positions that I was able to get this year. I'll really focus on my new positions I was able to get. These new positions will help out the overall fire department. A lot of what I've done with the increase of what we've expanded within the fire department in the last 2 years with the ARU units, I learned a lot about how we were not able to do the backgrounds, the backbone of the fire department, the training areas and stuff like that. So if we can go to the next slide.
Yeah, I'm not sure who's, yeah, there we go. And do you want to go to the next slide beyond this one?
No,
or
this one,
be here?
this one will
Yeah.
work. This one will work. Sorry.
Thank you.
So in this budget, in this proposal, I was able to get a health and safety captain. This division within my department has 1 chief officer, and that is it. And over 9 years, that is all we were able to get. So I'm trying to at least get a division of 2. A lot of what this division does is it helps with cancer prevention within the department, mental health within the fire department, a lot of background information to the fact of, bunker gear cleaning, stuff of that nature. Also, this division was in charge with the encampments. So it was in very lead of going out and doing the research on encampments and doing the background if they were fire safe and stuff like that. The next position is a new training captain. A lot of what I'm trying to accomplish with this is the training division. Our other divisions that are not traditional fire academy employees that come to the fire academy, we didn't have a very good onboarding process. So I wanted to have our training division take that on. And within that, this training captain will do a lot of that. It will help onboard new case managers. It will help them do the trainings. It'll help with the wildland division during our seasonals and help onboard them. We have a training division for a reason, and I would like to use that. It was getting put a lot on the MIHO division to do training. It was a lot put on wildland to do the training. So I'm trying to focus back on the training division does the training for the fire department. And then the last position that I was able to, in this budget proposal is the fire inspector position. We've looked into a lot of what we're trying to accomplish in public outreach. We really don't have anybody that is very focused on that. And that is something I wanted to bring, where we can have, all these events that we've been having, from flying the flag at the National Cemetery to these events at the football games, always in the fall. So I'm trying to make within the fire prevention division a person that's focused on this, and it has one point of contact. And I think with this thing, it will help us tremendously, and it will help the fire department overall. Some other highlights, our overall overtime expenses went up to 1.7 million. That includes every department within the fire department. That will include operations, wildland division, the ARU units, the MIHO division, and training, and then the on-call of the fire prevention division. So our overall budget went up to 1.7. So that's the overall expense. In that $1 million for vehicles, we are this coming fiscal year, we're going to ask for a new engine. Engine 1 is going to get replaced, and we're getting 2 new ambulances in this current budget. So that is where a lot of that $1 million is coming from. So we continue to expand we continue to move forward, and we always need to keep replacing these units because it takes a long time to replace a unit, and it's really a long time constraint at this point, where fire trucks and ambulances are taking over 360 to 400 days just to assemble once we get the PO in place. Some other key points in my budget was I was able to get to pre-pandemic levels. So this is the first time in 2 years that we're back to where we were before COVID came. So we're able to fix, line by line. Every position, every line, operating supplies and all that have been an increase. And then the other big points are utilities. Everything's going up. So I was able to fix a lot of that. One big thing for me is all our unfrozen positions are back. So that is 8 firefighters we were able to get back in this budget. Also 1 paramedic and 1 heavy mechanic. So we will also be able to expand in our mechanic shop and be able to go to 4 people in that division. Those are the big highlights for me. If I can go in here or I can send for questions on each budget. So this is admin budget. A lot of what's in this budget is where a lot of my expenses come from. The 34.5% increase, that is for the CBA allocation of the 8%. So that is why there's a big jump there. The other big jump is the $166,000 for supplies. That is due to the pre-pandemic levels. I took a big chunk out of there 2 years ago in our budget. So that is bringing money back in that area. And then the other cost, the $140,000 is increased into other departments. I have more people in my department. ARU, as we have extra people across my department, we have 205 FTEs. So I had to be able to expand in those areas. I can stand for questions on this, or I can go across and do all 3 budgets. Madam Chair, what would you like me to do?
Probably all 3.
Okay, so then the budget after that is operations. This is where a majority of my operating costs go to salaries. That you see in line 1, there's a big jump in there. I went from 3% of vacancy credit to 15% vacancy credit. So that was why there was a big jump in that one. Some other big areas in this budget is I had a wildland grant in there. It's the Forest Stewart Guild grant. That grant ends on June 30th. So that is why you see a big negative in insurance of $90,000 and other operating costs. So most of our contract and utilities, the $95,000 is this Forest Stewart Guild grant that we have lost. It was a 4-year grant we had. A lot of what I've done over the last 3 years is try to build up the wildland division to offset by us losing this grant. This doesn't mean we can't get a grant back. A lot of what this grant did was it was towards, hazard reductions in the watershed. We could go out there, they would give us money. Our wildland division would go work out there, and then they would reimburse the city on these things. So it is just, they don't have a project at this time to move forward, and that is why we don't have the money in that grant. Next slide, please. So this one's my division of support services. This division carries a lot of my grant funded money. This is a lot of money in my state fire fund money. This is my CARES money for one of my case managers on the ARU unit and the MIHO division. So the first one you see there is negative $248,000. That is due to one of my case managers. So we're in our last couple of years of our grant. So we are funding it per year now and not the whole amount. So we were just fixing an error that I had. It was my fault that we fixed in that one. Some other things is we bought a lot of vehicles this last year. So in the capital purchases, it's a negative $614,000. That is due to the fact that this year we are getting a new rescue for the rescue for Station 3, the rescue division. And that was a big chunk of why we don't have that kind of money coming in. But we always, with this budget, I budgeted enough for Engine 1. So those are the big highlights of my support service divisions. And I think at this time I can stand for questions.
Terrific. Questions from the committee?
Madam Chair.
Councilor Rivera.
Yeah, thank you, Chief Moya, for your presentation. The airport let us know that they were purchasing a ARF truck, which I assume is well over $1 million. And they said it was being purchased out of your budget, but yet I don't see that in here. And I know some of it, I think it was being purchased out of this year. Is that why it's not showing up here, or is is there some budget in next year's fiscal year that would help pay for that?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, so what happened was I did a lot of research in the last 2 weeks on this. It is going to cost us $1.2 million. We're at 485 days from when I get the PO. So me and Finance Director McCoy are working on it currently, and I will be taking it to Finance on May 2nd, and we're going to fund it right now. So we are doing it to get ahead of the game and try to get some of those 460 days dropped to get ahead of the game. So that's why I didn't present it in this budget, is it is in our current budget year, and I'm going to try to get it the PO for it by the end of May.
All right, so not touching this budget that we're talking about now at all.
Correct. We are currently going to just fund it with this current budget year. Me and the finance director were able to get the money, and I'm going to be put into my budget, and then I will have to carry it over for a whole year due to the fact that the truck is going to take 465 days to arrive. So we're trying to get ahead of the game, and hopefully by the end of next year, we'll be able to receive the truck.
All right, and I know traditionally it's been difficult to hire and retain or even find people that are willing to look at a paramedic school. Is that still an issue, or are we doing okay?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, so I've done things a little differently as being the new chief in the last 3 months. I've been able to let them go to school if they've gone to the community college. I'm also meeting with the unions currently to try to come up with a better plan to get a better pay, but I know it's not just pay. I'm going to be completely honest. It's fixing the base. I've created this budget, and moving forward as me being the chief is we need to get more people in the seats. We need more people in the fire stations. So when they go to paramedic school, we're not taking a hit from the crews running the calls. So we're getting better. We're currently right now in the hiring, the advertising phase for paramedic school. I think we're getting a little better at it. I think we just need to get me and the union on the same page and come up with a better plan to retain them and not just throw money at people, but also throw, better support and better understanding of how we run this place, and they not having to run every call and making sure my basics and intermediates are taking the appropriate calls when necessary. So I think a lot of it is us just changing the culture and changing how we represent and to show the paramedics we support them 100%.
Have we looked at hiring incentives or retention bonuses for, I know it's a little different than bringing somebody from the outside, but really from the inside, looking at those possibilities?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, I think I definitely can. We just need to have that conversation. I'm trying. We did get one lateral paramedic that started 3 months ago. You were there at the ceremony. So I think it's just a matter of retention. And I think that would be a definitely great conversation to have, is some kind of incentive if we could, and just so everybody's on the call knows, paramedics take a year to get. So it's not something I can just, once we send them to school, it's 12 months from the time I send them to school till they come back, till they become a paramedic. So if I can, I don't want to say steal paramedics from other agencies, but it's just like police officers. They're a hot commodity. They're hard to get, and if we could do anything to help with that, it'd be a great thing.
All right, and you said the community college paramedic program, are they back up and running 100%?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, yes. So they're up running 100%. We offer both programs to our department, so they can either choose to go to UNM or they can go to the community college, and we give them the choice to go whatever one they would like to. So they're both up and running, they're both working, and we have people in both programs currently. We have 3 paramedics in the UNM program, and we have 2 paramedics in the community college program.
What's the difference in length with the programs? Or are they the same?
They are the same.
Okay.
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, they're both community colleges realizing they got to keep up with UNM, and so we're both at 12 months exactly. So it's 12 months start to finish.
Right. All right, and then, traditionally, the chain of command or the ladder to climb up the ladder has been really fire centered. And I know several chiefs after me that were a lot smarter and brighter than I am have been trying to create really the paramedic career ladder that goes up. Are you still working on that, or has that already been kind of accomplished?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, I'm trying. What I am trying to do now is I got to fix paramedics. I can't keep promoting from the EMS side and then taking from my paramedic pool into those positions. But I think if I can fix the paramedic problem, I can keep the retention here, then I will definitely expand. That is where I struggle right now, is I can't keep expanding in EMS and then taking the medics from the field to fill those positions. And then I don't have enough medics to run the 911 calls. But I am definitely, that is a priority. That is why this budget cycle, I tried to fix mid-level positions, give some positions to training to help facilitate those things. So that is still on my radar. I just had some other priorities to fix first, and then definitely have that conversation next budget cycle.
All right, and just one final question. Who's our current medical director, and are they part of the Christus organization, or are they from somewhere else?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, it's Dr. Hodnick, and he's part of.
He's doesn't work locally.
He doesn't work locally, so he's just part of the group, and he is under contract. So his contract is his last year. This next budget cycle will be his last year. He's in professional contract.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. That's all I have.
Councilwoman Villarreal.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Chief Moya, for your presentation and all the information that you provided us. Just a quick clarification, because Alex is on my computer remotely, so I'm trying to do that and this at the same time. Not very good at this multitasking. So can you say again what position of the new positions was going to be assisting with? You said events. Which one was that? Can you say more about that?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Councilwoman Villarreal. So the fire inspector position. So we are putting a position in the fire marshal's office, and within that office, we will bring a position. They will still do inspections. They'll still do that. I'm just putting more responsibility on the other four, and this new position will do a lot of events. When I came in, it's kind of changed, and I feel like we need that kind of person. We need that person to do the Zobra, make sure that that's squared away, make sure the Indian market. So instead of us have multiple inspectors doing multiple events, it's a pinpoint accuracy, one person, and they will report to the fire marshal. And then on big events, I will be involved on all those things.
Got it. Okay, thank you for that. And then in terms of the vacancies, you said 11%. What was the number for that? For vacancies total?
Oh, Madam Chair, Councilwoman Villarreal, so a total of 22 positions. Is that your question? Is that?
Yeah, and I was curious if that actually went down with the current new cadet hires.
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Villarreal, so that number is a little different. So you can minus 2 positions out of it. That's case managers. So we hired 2 case managers. So when this program was in there, so we have 2 case managers we just hired, so that would put us at 20. And then we have the 8 positions that are not in the budget, but I don't have the money till July. So technically, if you really look at that deeply, I only have 8 vacancies total in the fire department, because in my proposed budget, these include the 22 vacancies.
So 8 vacancies total.
Right now.
Right now. But in fiscal year 23, that changes to, after the new folks come in, vacancies will be reduced even more, correct?
Madam Chair, Council Villarreal, sorry. So I guess, yeah, so we have 22 vacancies currently in the budget, but 10 of those, or maybe 13 of those will be available for me to fill in July. So my current vacancy rate is very low. It's probably at 7 or 6. I apologize, I don't have that current number, but it's a lot of that give and take of me moving forward. That can make sense.
Kind of. I mean, I guess I was just trying to understand with these new positions, case managers, the new cadets coming on board, where are you seeing us be in terms of vacancies in fiscal year 23?
We have Director McCoy's hand up. If you want to defer, Chief.
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Villarreal, I will have Finance Director McCoy help me on this one. Me and her talked this morning about it.
Okay.
Madam Chair, Councilor, yes, this is a bit confusing, particularly with this department. We are very excited to be able to unfreeze some of the positions that have been frozen these last few years. So what Chief Moya is talking about now is what is his current rate for funded positions. This year, he has some vacant positions that were unfunded. That's what we've been calling frozen positions. So that does include, I believe, the number that he is referencing for right now. He's filled a few case managers. He's brought in the class that just graduated, but that's as of the end of April. When we begin the fiscal year 23, we will be able to start filling those frozen positions because the budget before you today does include funding for those positions that have been frozen these last few years. Again, very excited about that. But what that does for his FY23 vacancy rate on July 1 is it increases it a little bit because all those positions we are counting as vacant. So I'm sure Chief Moya has a great plan to start filling those positions. When we did talk this morning, he's also flagged for us, and this is very helpful to know, very similar to what we talked about with the police department budget. Sometimes there are waves because folks start in a class together. There are waves of retirements as well. And so, Chief, I will defer to you to talk more about those operational lessons for us and what we have to carry as far as a cadet class, funding for a cadet class each year.
Before you go there, Director McCoy, so given what you said in fiscal year 23, that we'll have unfrozen positions, we'll start with how many vacancies in fiscal year 23?
22, Madam Chair, Councilor, 22 vacant positions.
20, okay. Thanks. Chief Moya, did you want to go ahead and say more about that?
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Villarreal. So a lot of what I've learned being here 20 years is we have a big turnover rate. So technically class 2-1, and that's my current class. I'm the only one left. And so I hit 20 years a month ago. Class 2-2 will hit 20 years in year 24. And that is 11 people. So a lot of what it is and a lot of what it comes down to is I can never not have an academy moving forward. It always is a give and take for me because at any point I could have 11 people all decide to leave me due to retirements. So what happens and how to fix it is just every year we have an academy. In this current budget, I have an academy of 20 that I have funded. I have the ability to hire up to 20 cadets. And a lot of it is just the retention and the recruitment. So every year after class 2-2, there has been a class of 15 to 18 employees. So in the next 4 to 5 years, we could have, the top part of the fire department have 40 people eligible to retire. So a lot of just like what PD fire is, we come in groups and we leave in groups. So it is just a matter of when we were in FY 2019 during COVID, we didn't have an academy. We don't feel the effects of it till a year and a half to 2 years later when we're like, oh my goodness, we didn't have an academy and now we have to try to fund this and we're having this high vacancy rate. My overtime goes out the roof. Those are kind of the consequences of just not continuing to at least have the ability to fund it.
Thank you for that explanation, Chief. So in terms of retention, you're saying that there's a lot of turnover, and we talked about this yesterday, but do you all talk to folks about why they're moving on with exit interviews? I don't know if you do that, conduct them. I think HR does, but what is kind of the main reason why turnover is so high?
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Villarreal. So I do exit interviews also with all my fire department employees that leave. You know, I give them that option. I say, come into my office. We lost one paramedic 2.5 months ago. He wanted to go be a military. A lot of the people I lose is paramedics. Paramedics are a growing demand. You know, that paramedic license they can carry across the country. They can have a national register license and they can take that with them to wherever they would like to go. This gentleman moved to Las Vegas, Nevada. He wanted to work for the military so he could be on bases and move with his family as needed. So, and the other reason is something that I need to work on internally, and me inheriting is they promote. They all want to promote. They all want to make more money. So these paramedics want to promote to lieutenant. They want to promote to captain, and they want to get off the ambulance sometimes and go to a fire truck. They want to be in charge of the station. When you're a lieutenant or a captain, you run that house. You're in charge of that station for 2 days. So a lot of it is not just they leave us. It's promotions. Everything I do within the fire department is a promotional ladder. So if you start as a firefighter, you can work your way up and continue to promote. And then I create the vacancies on the bottom end.
So it's not turnover leaving the fire department altogether. It's
Correct.
mostly, okay, that's good to know. And then you referenced high overtime. So, I mean, that's a hefty budget of 1.7 million for overtime that you put in. How do you all decide what that number is going to be?
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Villarreal, it is a moving target. A lot of it is events. A lot of it is all across the board. We have minimum staffing. So we don't, if we have a bunch of people calling sick that day or on annual leave, and we have people on light duty, and we don't have the staffing level, we hold. So that is our main priority. That's where a majority of our budget goes into is overtime for the stations, the crews, the 48-hour shift employees. Other overtime is events. I kind of had to bump up the overtime due to all the events we're going to have this summer. Zobra is a big event that we take on that causes a lot of overtime. And then we are also trying to create a bike medic team. So in the summertime, we're able to have, like PD, have some bikes on the plaza, have bikes at events across the city where they can help respond to these calls faster and not have to drive through all the traffic. So we're trying to get more proactive on adding new and innovative ways to respond to calls a little quicker. So the overall majority of that, and then just to clarify, 120,000 of that is wildland overtime. So I put a cap on it, but if we have to go help other cities or other departments without the state, I have a set amount of money to send. So we're not tapping into our overtime costs for the structural side. I have a set amount for the wildland division to go out to. And I put 35,000 to talk about overtime for ARU. I'm currently using that now to get the experience, letting the crew see what this unit does. So I put a little bit of money in there just to let the crews see if we can get some paramedics interested in that unit to help on the overtime. And when we start expanding in that direction also.
Great. So is the 1.7 like what you decide based on past trends? I mean, I guess my question is, in past trends, has the overtime been that high?
Madam Chair, Council BRL, yes. On average, my overtime budget is very high. To be completely honest, it is the cost of doing business within the fire department. When we give a pay raise, we give stuff like that, everything goes up. But it is just, I can't leave the citizens without coverage. I can't. Our people know within the fire department, you might not go home on that third day because somebody might call in sick and you have to work. So I think a lot of it is, I've been here 20 years and everybody used to tell me overtime's going to go down. Councilor Rivera probably will attest to this. Overtime's going to drop. It might drop 3 or 4 months, but we might have people on FMLA. We might have people on military leave. So a lot of what I have to account for is when that person's not there, somebody else has to pick up the slack. It's within the fire department, we have to have that 34 day.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation. And my last question, you talked about ARU, and we didn't see anything about increases for ARU, for the ARU team, which leads me to believe that's not going to grow beyond 2 units at this time. Maybe you can say more about that, because I'm not talking about necessarily increases in staff, but really just looking at how that is going to be expanded, and what since there weren't any requests in the budget, what are you all planning to do in terms of expansion of the program?
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Rivera, very good question. I knew you were going to ask that question. I was ready for it. I had to fix the base. I'm being completely honest. I use paramedics for that unit. I need to get more paramedics in my streets so I can expand. A lot of what I'm trying to accomplish is we moved really fast, and now I need to fix the other areas. That is why I put a training captain in that position to help with that. We moved so fast to get ARU 1 and 2 up and running, and we were not able to help the structure support that. I need to be able to do case managers and make sure that their training's up to speed. I need to make sure that we get a better facility. We're almost growing out at Midtown of how we can expand in that area. So it is a lot of not just putting the units out to help. It's also support the structure, help the division. We are running out of the Ron shop. I forgot the appropriate name there at Midtown. So the unit is kind of just thrown in there. So I need to get better facilities for them. I've learned that we can move so fast, but then we have to slow down and realize that we have to support them structurally behind the scenes too. So me moving forward, I hope next budget cycle, I can bring you another unit, or if I can fix a lot of the issues I have currently, we can continue to expand. The program is not a pilot program in my mind. I think Director Ochoa would agree with me. It is part of what I do, is part of what the fire department does. We have complete 100% buy-in. It is a great program. I think it's helping the community 100%. I know it's helping PD. I know it's helping fire. And the crews really utilize those units. And I need to, when I bring ARU 3 up and running, it will also be just like the fire department, where I will have to put enough resources out there. So if somebody's on an annual leave day, or somebody's on a sick leave day or calling sick, we have the backup support to keep the unit running, because we right now don't have the structure to say if one of the EMS captains are sick, or 2 of the EMS captains are sick, we don't have the capacity yet to keep it up and running. So I also need to realize, just like in the fire department, I need to make sure that it runs 7 days a week, or right now it's 5 days a week, and make sure that the structure behind the ARU is there also.
And Madam Chair, Councilman Villarreal, if I may add, we are indeed extremely excited about the alternative response unit and what it's able to do for the community. And we very much look forward to growing it sensibly. And one of the things that Councilor Rivera asked me about, the contractual amounts in the community services admin budget, intending to do a strategic plan, which includes a plan for growth of the ARU. What is the most sensible way to grow the ARU? I know Chief Joy will talk about how much that service means for police as well as fire. You know, when we look at our shortages in police, and I know we'll discuss that, ARU is a really great strategy for addressing those low-level nonviolent calls. And if we could wave a magic wand and have 24/7 coverage of ARU, I think everybody in public safety would want to do that. That's how successful the program's been. That's a tribute to Andres Mercado, to Nicole Alt, to Ramos, to Will, to every member of that team, and to Chief Moya for supporting it in a really sensible way where it's getting fully integrated into that department. So I think, I know we've been told that this is not a one and done budget. We could even, if we get a study done sooner, come back to finance and the council, in the fiscal year 23 about how to add units. We want to just make sure that we're doing it in a way that doesn't, the analogy is really to get the ladder getting so high that the truck falls over, right? We don't want that to happen. And we want that team to be fully supported. They do some of the hardest work in this city, and we need to make sure that they have everything they need to do it well. So we fully intend to grow it. We just don't have a direct request in this budget, although as Chief Moya said, the training captain can support that. And the budget for contractual exploration of evaluation and strategic growth for that program can also support growth.
Thank you, Director Chua. So right now, the 2 units, 5 days a week, is that still Monday through Friday?
Yes, it is.
And that's 9 to 6. What is it again?
Madam Chair, Council, Woman VRL. So ARU 1 is up fully. We are still trying to get ARU 2 up and running. A lot of what we're having is these new case managers that we just hired in the last 2.5 weeks. It is just a matter of facilitating it. But 1 unit is running 10-hour shifts. They're running 8 to 6 Monday through Friday.
And
sure, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, Councilwoman Villarreal. This is something I could talk a lot about, so I don't want to take too much time on this committee. But one thing to also understand about ARU, it's it's connected to services within the community, right? So as we don't want to put so much burden on the team finding people in crisis to then support them long term. We need to make sure our community partners are there to catch them and get referrals and support them after hours and beyond what we're able to do. So it requires, and thankfully we're working very closely with our partners at the county, at the crisis center, at Behavioral Health Services Division and other places that are very interested in supporting that work to make sure that, PMS Guidance Center, La Sala, and all the behavioral health providers in Santa Fe, which have been, as you know, struggling after having been essentially defunded, are really there to support the people that we're finding in the field. So it's like the fire department itself. You push out one thing, it sort of pulls at another area.
Yeah, I hear you. That's hard though, because people don't have crises 5 days a week, 8 to 6. And then just worried about that.
Madam Chair,
when people have
Councilman
weekend
Muriel,
crises.
we are too. And thankfully I should give a shout out to the La Sala Mobile Crisis Response Team, which is available after hours as well. So it's not that we have nothing in the community to support people after hours. And we also have our incredible police department and fire department that have been doing the brunt of this work for decades. They get trained in crisis intervention training, mental health interventions, and they're fabulous in the field as well. So it's as Chief Moya says, around fully integrating this specialized unit into what we already do. Not that we don't need more, that we don't want more, but as I think, I'm always ready, and I put a lot of pressure on when I first came into this position to get the ARU team. Chief Moya was another incredibly good sport about how much pressure and how quickly we had to get it going, and they did it. And now we just need to make sure moving forward it's done really sensibly.
Got it. Yep, that makes sense. And one last question, ARPA funds couldn't be used for ARU infrastructure needs?
Madam Chair, Councilman Villarreal, infrastructure needs in terms of staffing, which is the main infrastructure, not so much. I think we might, in working with Director McCoy, if we have needs around purchases of vehicles or things like that, perhaps. I think we'd have to look and work with legal. Currently, we aren't proposing using ARPA funding directly for ARU, although we do have a large allocation for mental health that we will be bringing forward next week, and there's flexibility within that amount as well.
Okay.
We'll be doing a deep dive into this ARPA stuff on Tuesday.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Or I guess second.
Councilor Lindell moved to approve the fire department budget. Councilor Cassett is the second. If we could get a roll call, please.
Councilor Villarreal.
Yes.
Councilor Rivera.
Yes.
Councilor Cassett.
Yes.
Councilor Lindell.
Yes.
And Councilor Romero Worth.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, we are moving on to the police department budget. I believe this is the last budget in this umbrella, and it is 3:22. Just want to make everybody aware of the time as we move to discuss what's next. And Director Choa, I don't know, are you gonna?
Madam Chair, thank you. If I could introduce
Yeah.
Chief before throwing him into the deep end here, I want to say, when I came into this position, I started talking to officers, as I'm sure will emerge in the conversation. Our vacancy rate for the police department has long been a concern, and as calls for service have increased over the years, as the intensity and acuity of those situations has increased, it's very important that we invest in our police force. Now, of course, our proposed 16% for the collective bargaining agreement will go a long way, we hope, toward attracting, retaining police officers. But as Chief Joy will tell you, no one becomes a police officer from pay. When I first started speaking with officers about why we didn't have as many people in the department as we needed, a few things emerged, and this is not a scientific survey, but one of them was morale. I will say that I think we have done a lot to improve morale in recent months. We are showing upward mobility within the police department by promoting from within. Very happy to have chosen Chief Joy, who is also has a management style that's extremely inclusive and asks for a lot of input from his whole department. So I think morale is really doing well in the police department, and that'll attract other officers to us. Another thing that did emerge was the cost of housing in Santa Fe. So I hope and I'm very encouraged by the exploration of the mortgage assistance program. I think that will bring a lot of folks closer to where we hope they will live in Santa Fe. And then finally, and interestingly, and this is a little amorphous, but a theme that emerged from many people I spoke to was really looking at having a supportive community and city council for our police department. And I know this council and the department and the community are very appreciative of our officers and all they do. This has been a very hard year for our police department in many, many ways, having lost one of our own. The more we can do to show these officers how much we support them, how much we appreciate their very difficult choice to do this job, the better, because then everyone recognizes Santa Fe as a place where officers get a lot of support. And with that, I will turn it over to Chief Joy to talk about the details of the police budget.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you. It's an honor to be here. I'm going to try to be respectful of your time. Also, just to say real quick, as a former lifeguard, I'm happy to brainstorm with any of the other teammates here to see what we can do about increasing the staff there. I don't think I'd be here today were it not for my early time in that profession there. But to jump in here, again, we're grateful to see an increase of $4 million, approximately 13.6% from the FY22 budgeted levels. For FY23, we're looking at 232 funded positions, including 4 new positions as evidence and property technicians. Of the 232, we have approximately 54 vacancies in total. That's to include sworn and non-sworn, putting us at a vacancy rate of about 23%. We have 169 sworn positions with 34 vacancies, which puts us at a vacancy rate of about 20%. In the coming months, we are anticipating to hire 3 more cadets, which we're going to send into the next academy here. And we're planning on hiring 1 more lateral that should be coming soon. We're also anticipating the retirement of 1 lieutenant by June. The next slide, please. So among the increases to this year's budget proposals, again, is the 4 additional evidence tech property positions, where this builds on our evidence room staffing that was added in 2020 as part of the updates to the evidence room, as well as the evidence handling processes. As well as we're funding to purchase an additional 30 vehicles, which would restore our department to pre-COVID purchase quantities. Funding to complete department-wide transition to the Axon camera system, including in-car cameras, our interview rooms, and the software to manage these devices, as well as a number of contracts to include $100,000 to the Solace Crisis Service contracts. Again, continuing our partnership with them, a very important partnership for us in the community. Next slide, please. There we go. In the administrative division, we are seeing an increase of 55.9% in salaries, wages, and benefits. This is because of the proposed 16% allocated to the collective bargaining agreement, which is being housed currently in admin budget. Once the CBA is completed and accepted, that funding would be distributed accordingly to the appropriate divisions. Also in that increase are the 4 new evidence tech positions that we talked about. Also seen in the admin budget is a decrease of 48.6% in the insurance. This is attributed to a reduction both in risk assessment as well as police vehicle claims. Another increase seen in the administration budget is 53.4% in capital purchases. This is an increase. This goes to the 30 police vehicles, which again brings us back to where we should be, where we accounting for pre-COVID levels. Next slide, please. The operations, there we are. Okay, so the operations division, those are the officers and detectives and the personnel that you guys see out in the streets every day responding to calls. And the notable decrease again in this slide is 26.2% in the insurance, again due to the reduction in risk assessment as well as police vehicle claims. We see an increase in the capital purchases from 32,000 to 45,000. 40.6%. That's due to the purchase of a new animal services vehicle, as well as an additional 13,000 for the purchase of the kennel for that vehicle. Next slide, please. And this slide is just a summary broken down by division. Next slide, please. And this one is a summary broken down by category. And the last slide, this should be a summary broken down by funds. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Thank you, Chief, and welcome. Congratulations on your new job, and welcome to your first Finance Committee meeting as Chief. Didn't get to say that on the front end.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate that.
Questions from the committee? I know you got them.
I'm okay if you don't.
All right, there we go. Now we got our hands on the buzzers. All right, Councilor Rivera.
Such luck, Chief. Let's see. So you guys offer $15,000 sign-on bonuses. Where does that come out of?
I'll defer that to Director McCoy, please.
Madam Chair, Councilor, I believe that is in the admin budget.
Is it part of salary, wages, and benefits, or does it come out of somewhere else?
Madam Chair, Councilors, if either Lawrence or Andy want to jump in, I am pulling up the detail now to be able to answer that question for you.
Oh, well, we wait for that answer, Chief. So I noticed that most of the 16% increases are going to salary and other salaried employees, it looks like, within POA. What does that do to non-union people that are in close proximity, I guess, to the highest level union paid employee? Are we going to see compaction with this?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, I don't believe so with the 8% that's proposed for the rest of us. I think we're in a good position. I don't anticipate any compaction concerns if were this to go through.
Right. So what's the highest paid union position? What's the title of the highest paid union?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, I wouldn't be able to tell you that off the top of my head. Aside from the patrol sergeant, which is currently slated, I believe they make 35. an hour. I believe that's the highest union position.
All right, and then the lowest paid non-union person, I'm not talking individual, just kind of average, is it, you know, a couple dollars higher than that? Is it significantly higher?
I think we would be talking about the pay rate of our public safety aides, and I don't have their pay rates in front of me. If I can kick that one to DC Valdez, if you can help me out with that.
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera. So I believe your question was, what is the lowest pay of the non-union employee that would be closest to the police sergeant? Is that correct, sir?
I believe so. Just the difference between the union and non-union. I can't believe it's that much different.
So that would be our police lieutenant. That would be within the next range in a non-union position with that patrol sergeant. And with the proposed recommended allocation for salary increases for both the lieutenant and the sergeant, there would still be approximately a $4 range of pay at that point. It would be closer than it's been in years past, but with compaction this year, we would be okay. But if there were additional increases moving forward, they'd have to be done at a consistent rate to avoid compaction.
Right. Okay. Well, keep us on task if that ever does come up. What was my other question here? Did you have an answer on my first question, Director McCoy, before I move on?
Looks like Mr. Hopkins has joined and can answer.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilor Rivera. Those are budgeted in the salaries category. They're budgeted in the incentives line item. There is a line item in the budget for incentives, and that is where that is budgeted.
All right, I don't see that on the slide. So how many people have taken advantage of that, Chief or Mr. Hopkins?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, since the inception of the program, we've had 18 lateral officers take advantage of that offer.
And it's my understanding that most of those officers are still here?
They are all still here, sir.
Okay. Where are they in the process of receiving the second half of their incentive?
I believe Ms. Bowen can help me out with that. I think 12 have received the full payment and the rest are half. I could be off by that by a number or two.
All right. Was Ms. Bowen gonna?
Looks like Deputy Chief Valdez is beaming in.
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera. So that's correct. We have approximately 10 lateral officers last year that have received their initial pay and their second pay. There may be one or two that may be coming up on it now around May. And then we have approximately 6, or the remaining difference, that 8 of them, which have received their first pay and would be due for their second installment in the second part of 23 and the latter part of 22 this year.
Okay. So, you know, I understand the 16% increase to the salary. I think we have to keep up with what other departments are doing just to retain police officers. So to say they don't do it for the pay, I think is wrong. I think if that were true, we wouldn't have to keep up with what other departments are doing, but unfortunately we do. So in other discussions previous to today, I learned that the amount of vacancies that we have now are higher than what we had 2 years ago. And we've put in 27, I think 0.5% increase 2 years ago, and now a 16% increase to keep up with what state police are doing. So my question is, have we looked into other ways besides pay? And I know leadership is a big part, morale is a big part, but have we looked into other incentives to keeping keeping police officers here in Santa Fe besides just the money part of it?
Madam Chair, excuse me, Councilor Rivera, if I could take the first part and then maybe DC Joy and his Chief Joy, excuse me, it's a long day, and his deputy chief could help. I think that in terms of some of the incentives that I've heard have to do with the investment in the infrastructure within the police department. And when I first came into this job, I didn't realize how important police cars are, but they're really important. They're the number one tool that police officers have in many ways to do their job. They're their office and they need to work well and they need to be, up to date. And so I think the investment in the police cars is helping quite a bit. The investment in technology, the body camera system that the council and the finance committee approved earlier this year has made a tremendous difference in terms of people's sense of the ease and efficiency with which they can do their job, the safety that they experience in the field. And then the fact that we're investing in a new record management system, forgive me to the police officers out there, but the analogy to me is when you go to your doctor's office and they're always like fiddling with the records and they have to spend forever on the record system because it's not working and they're not looking you in the eye, and how frustrated doctors are by that. I think police officers are very frustrated with the amount of time that the current record management system has been taking. So those may sound like small things, but I think, investing in technology and those kinds of efficiencies, leadership, housing costs so that they don't have to commute an hour each way to work here are another big thing. And I think, Chief Joy's looked at all kinds of things from our facial hair policy, which has recently changed. Those are very low hanging fruits, but he's heard from a number of his folks it would make a difference if they could have, a well-trimmed conservative beard on the job. And I'll turn it over to you, Chief, to add to anything.
Right. And Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, there are a lot of factors that we've been working on and dealing with. Obviously, 2020, for a number of reasons, hit our profession pretty hard, but also here at the department, getting an academy going, working with DPS to try to get an academy. If we didn't have an academy, we couldn't hire cadets, which was a problem for us. Also, we saw a pretty drastic decline in interest in the profession for a number of reasons. But also it was a matter of, on our end, we're kind of, to speak to what Chief Moya mentioned and some of the other folks before me in public safety, is we seem to hire in bulk and they retire in bulk. And if part of the problem that we see is sometimes trying to hire as much and more than to keep up with the retirements. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to hire 4 and we're already losing 1 to retirement. So far in 2020, we haven't had any resignations, which is great. I'll take credit for that. No one here to argue with me yet, but there's a lot of things, a lot of factors that are involved. And one of the things that I've spoke with throughout my selection process and am challenging our staff to do is to, again, be more proactive in not just how we recruit, but how we engage with people who might be potentially good for this profession. Because when we speak to Director Ochoa's comment and yours as well, the decision to enter the profession has to come first. And what we're finding is the folks who are motivated by money to get in this profession don't last very long. And we see that oftentimes in some of our resignations when we get cadets that come in and we get them through the process. And I can speak, this is a standard practice in the academy, myself included, that I saw. The first day in the academy, they basically shock you with showing you and explaining to you all the terrible things that can happen to you in this job, and to really make sure this is something you really want to do. And people leave after that first introduction. And so it's the decision to come into this profession has to be the right one, and it has to be made first. And then everything else comes secondary.
Thanks, Chief. In one of the slides, you showed 54 vacancies. I think you said 33, 31, somewhere in there were actual police officers. Where are the rest of the vacancies at?
Madam Chair, Mr. Rivera, the other vacancies come from the non-sworn positions, and you'll see those in our administrative assistants and records, and I believe some of our public safety aides and our evidence techs that we're adding into the mix here.
So you have 21 vacancies in those other areas as well?
Let me refer to my notes here. I believe that's true. My scattering of notes.
I believe
Vacancies.
Ms. Bowen is raising her hand, perhaps with information to help.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilor Rivera, it would be 26 vacancies in our non-sworn with the expansion of the 4 evidence techs.
Okay, wow, that's a lot. Is it just the general trend of not being able to find people that want to come back to work, or are there other issues that are keeping people from coming in?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, I think DC Valdez can shed some insight into that, including, some of the rigorous background checks that are required in these non-sworn positions in PD.
Okay.
Thank you, Director Ochoa. Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera. We have a couple of issues at play. So one is right now trying to get people back to work, and again, finding a work environment that now fits their needs. A lot of things changed following the pandemic when people were working online, where we had the opportunity for people to telecommute. So they are looking for a bit more flexibility as one side of it. The other side of the coin as well is employee compensation. One thing that can speak to that is our records technicians and our admin assistants. We've had those positions chronically vacant for the last 2, almost 3 years. It isn't due to a lack of interest. Truth be told, we had well over 60 applicants that applied, interviewed, and let us know that they want to be a records tech or an admin assistant. Of those 60, we hired 4 because it came down to the pay. Of the 4 that we hired, we have 2 that remain with us. One of them just recently left because of the pay. She was a records technician. We did do that increase where she went up to that $15 an hour pay rate. But when she was going to transition from records tech to an admin assistant, she was unable to get that 10% increase because it would have caused compaction within the admin assistant classification. So she was able to get a higher rate of pay somewhere else. And for us, that's a huge loss because we trained that individual for that skill set, and a lot of time and investment went into it. And it's a position that is dearly needed. That is something that we've communicated. We're trying to be real creative about how we can do that. The other side of it too is during our selection process, if you work behind the secure doors of the lobby at the police department, you have to pass a background that allows you to access criminal justice information system data. It's a pretty rigorous and long process. Sometimes when we do call candidates back that do administrative work, it may be anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks after they initially applied. And they're going to say, well, I'm sorry, I had to take another job and I'm unable to go and wait and not be gainfully employed while this process goes on. So we're looking at a different way to approach that to kind of minimize that side. But in addition, what we're looking at is if we can get them onboarded with the city, and let's say they don't pass our background check, we know there's vacancies currently that exist throughout the city. So if they can't be assigned to PD, we can onboard them while they start the background, much like Los Alamos National Labs does. And if they don't work out for us, we can offer them up to other city departments so we can help fill those vacancies as well. And they're gainfully employed as they go through that background process. So we're looking at different ways to be creative, but those are positions that need to be staffed. They need to be functional because they're a direct support for our personnel in the field. They do all the paperwork. They do the validations for the reporting for the criminal justice system. They make sure that all the bills are paid so their vehicles can operate and everything's good and operating here at the police department. So it's a critical position that we need, and we are looking at different ways to be aggressively adjustable to say we need to get people in the door and get them on our team.
Thank you, Chief. Chief Joy, so I get this question, I'm sure many of the counselors do, but Can you explain the importance of take-home vehicles and why they're so critical to retention?
Sure, Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera. Yeah, and this is something that is seen statewide. I don't know of a department in the state that doesn't offer take-home vehicles. It's just due to the nature of where we live and the various economic differences we've seen between communities. In order for us to remain competitive, that's just one aspect of a thing that we're in a position now that it has to be, we have to offer it to be able to remain competitive with the folks, because every other agency that I'm aware of, that's a standard practice is the take-home vehicles.
And what percentage of your staff lives out of city limits?
I'm not entirely sure. We're waiting for the union results. They're doing their own little internal survey that I'm waiting to hear back for. So far, 39 have responded. We haven't gotten the rest of those. I believe of the 39, 60%, give or take, were outside of the city. But department-wide, I wouldn't be able to answer that question for you, sir. At least not at this time, but we can get that for you.
All right. So I know there are other counselors that have questions. So I just, want to make one last comment. In the last 10 years, I'm sure you know this, we've only been fully staffed for one day out of 10 years. And the next day, I think we saw a few retirements and we were short-staffed again. And so I don't know where we're missing the mark. I'm not sure. And, I know you're more in tune with your department than I ever will be. But I think we need to start looking at things differently and maybe do things differently, maybe think outside of the box, for lack of a better term, for ways to keep and to hire more. And I don't know what that answer is, but clearly you're the main man in your area, and I hope we can work together to try to find ways to improve that situation. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Counselor. I just want to ask a quick question. So to the point that we have higher vacancies now than we did 2 years ago, we also, so the last 2 years we've been in COVID, and one or both of those years we didn't have, the academy was not operating, and so we didn't have the usual class of cadets. Was it just the first year of COVID?
Yes, Madam Chair, and DC Valdez can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe it was in 2021, they did resume the academy classes. It was just during the
2020.
2020, yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, so that probably also is a factor in terms of why we have the vacancy rates that we have now, because we didn't have that class coming in to help.
Madam Chair, I do believe that to be another reason for it, because if the academy isn't operating, then we can't justify hiring the cadets to send them. We have nowhere to send them.
Right. Okay, so just wanted to add that to the picture as we think about these things. I don't disagree that we need to continue to be thinking about, how we attract, how we retain, how we crack this nut, but just adding that. Councilwoman Villarreal.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Chief Joy. It's refreshing to have you with us this budget season. Such a different vibe, I have to say, than past years. So thank you for all the work and your team. I'm going to start off easy, just starting with the question about the vehicles, which the majority of that budget was for hybrid vehicles. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Villarreal, yes, I believe that's true. We're looking to all the new vehicles for patrol and for our investigations personnel. The plan is for them all to be hybrid vehicles.
Great. And so I'm just curious, because we've always we're shocked by the amount of money that we pay for fuel costs. So I'm curious, that 619,000 for fuel costs, what is that compared to past years now that we have hybrid vehicles? And now that you're budgeting for hybrid vehicles, I'm wondering if you all reduced the amount budgeted or kept it the same?
Madam Chair, Councilman Villarreal, if I can kick that to Director McCoy.
Yes, Madam Chair, Councilor, thank you for the question. Across, I believe we discussed this previously, maybe on the first day. We have had to make adjustments to fuel, to energy costs in totality throughout the budget. So we actually added, given the challenges that we're seeing in the market currently. So we've actually added to the fuel expenses. We do anticipate, I believe the first order went out with council approving approximately a $4 million bar a few months ago. So the first order for those hybrid vehicles has already gone out. So we look forward to monitoring these expenses in the future. Hopefully that'll bring that down. And I see Mr. Hopkins is also ready to assist in answering this question.
Thank you, Director McCoy. Madam Chair, Councilwoman Villarreal. Also, I will note that there is a substantial lead time in the purchase of police vehicles because of all the equipment that has to be added to them, computers, cameras, light bars, just all kinds of stuff, and pulling all that together, particularly in the current situation with supply chain issues across the board. It will probably be a while, probably not until late in FY23 before we start seeing appreciable fuel savings from the purchase of hybrid vehicles.
How much time did you say? Sorry, it cut out a little bit.
I would estimate, police would probably have a better estimate than I would on this, but I would believe it would probably be not until late next year before we start seeing appreciable savings in fuel costs for police vehicles because of that lead time.
Got it. I'm just writing that down. Okay. All right, moving on to the equipment and services budget. It says various equipment and services, but it's 2.6 million. Taking out the Axon contract, which I'll ask about in just a bit. Can you tell us what else is in that 2.6 million?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Councilman Villarreal. One of the things we're looking at is the additional purchase of another mobile video trailer. Also, 2 trailers for our traffic unit, 1 trailer for special operations.
Special ops, can you say more about the trailer for special ops?
Sure, for equipment and for use in training to store and transport.
Say that again.
For use to transport for equipment and use in like their training equipment.
Okay.
Counselor, if I may, that's going to be for our police service dogs. So they need to carry certain equipment like cones, signage, so they can say, here's where they're doing the training. Also a suit for them to utilize for the training with the dog to do deployments. So it's going to be utilized because they can't keep it all in their vehicle. So it's going to be an equipment trailer to go and take that equipment for training purposes.
Okay, thank you. And what else? Was there anything else in that budget?
Ms. Bowen has her hand up. Hopefully she can chime in.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
Madam Chair, Councilor Villarreal, it also includes a 13,000 for the purchase of the kennel.
Purchase of the kennel?
For the animal services vehicle.
Got it.
And that's it for the equipment.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bone. So then related to Axon, so we passed the budget that was what, 5.5 million, I think it was, for that contract, and all the bells and whistles and all included. So can you tell us, is this 1.1 million in addition to the 5.5 that we already budgeted?
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Villarreal, I believe so, and DC Valdez can answer a little more detailed than I can.
Madam Chair, Councilor Villarreal, so last year the 1.1 was barred over, and now the 1.1 that's included is now the budgeted amount that will carry forward for the life of the contract. Once we get to the end of the life of the contract, then we will see what the cost is going to be at that point. If we need to go negotiate to either figure out what that price is going to be, or if it's going to stay the same after we get to that contract. But now it's going to be included as part of our budget because it was barred last year when it was approved for implementation.
So it was barred last year, which is fiscal year 22, but we're seeing it in this budget. Can someone explain that to me?
So last year it was barred because it was not included in our budget because we had to have that 1.1 to initiate the project. This year, we're budgeting that cost for that contract. And that's for this year. And then it's going to have to be part of our budget for the following years for the contract. So year 1 and 2 are covered now. Years 3, 4, and 5 will be included in follow-on budgets as a recurring cost.
Okay, and that's a 5-year contract, correct?
Yes, Councilor.
Okay, great. I would ask for maybe staff to present or give us an update, not today, but maybe at Quality of Life, about how that contract is going, how it's working for PD, how often it's used, and in terms of the training, I forgot what you call it. I keep wanting to say IA, but it's not.
VR, the virtual reality training.
VR, thank you. The VR training, but I'd love to get an update about that in one of our meetings, since it's been, how long since we've implemented the new cameras? It's October. Gosh, it feels like forever. Okay. Feels like a year ago, to be honest with you, but okay. But I'd love a presentation just to hear how that's going. Thank you. The other line item was about contracts. It's $842,000 for contracts. Can you tell us what is entailed for that? Not including Solace. I'm just wondering, because that's $100,000. Can you tell us more about the other contracts?
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Villarreal, I believe so. So the major contracts that we hold are, obviously, we mentioned Solace, the detention center as another large one, the public safety psychology group, PSPG, that's another major contract that we hold. And I can go down through the whole list if you would like. Those are the major contracts.
Tell us about the public safety psychology group.
Sure, that is with Dr. Troy Rogers, and that is services that we utilize for our staff. They also help us with training for the crisis intervention techniques, the CIT training, and we have an open contract for counseling for our officers, and we utilize them pretty extensively.
Great, thank you. I'm glad to hear that. Any other contracts out of the 842?
Those are the major ones. I can, like I said, I can pull the list if you'd like and go through the whole thing, or I can give it to you another time, whichever you prefer.
When you say major, are you talking about the bulk, like
the higher value contracts? Like
half of the 842, or?
I believe the detention center is about 500,000.
Okay, that helps to frame that. And then the PSPG, is that what you called it? Sorry.
Yes, ma'am. PSPG. I'm not sure. Ms. Bowen can help me with the exact number on that one.
Madam Chair, Councilor Villarreal, that is 20,000.
Oh, it's smaller. Okay.
20,000 for the psychology. We also use Dr. Cave, who has a contract for psychology as well, and then 20,000 for the one-on-one counseling.
Okay. So we're still like, is there any other items that were, because those are kind of smaller percentage?
Yes, Councilor. So those contracts include our rental agreements for our office at the Solace Center for Special Victims Unit Detectives. It also includes the space that we have for the offices at the shelter for animal services officers as well. And then it has the associating contracts that we have with them for services provided. The one for the animal services, for the veterinarian service, that one's pretty costly because costs have gone up. So we did negotiate that this past year. like Chief Joy mentioned as well, the detention contract is a large contract as well. But those are mostly for those types of services that are provided. The large ones, again, are animal shelter for both rental space and services. The Solace contract for both rental space, and then 80,000 currently. We're going to be increasing that service up to 100,000 to meet the capacity needs that we have. Those will be our major contracts, but we have some other smaller contracts in there that range anywhere in costs from 20,000 per year to maybe within that range. But the vast majority are for the ones that he listed before.
Thank you, DC Valdez, for the details. That's helpful. And just to clarify, the Solace Crisis Service, that was our former contract called Santa Fe Safe. Is that correct?
No, Counselor, I believe it's a different contract. I don't think we house that one in police department. Ours is mostly for assisting us with victims of domestic violence, sexual assaults, and doing that type of work.
Excellent. So is that Santa Fe Safe contract still with us, Director Ochoa, or is that a different?
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Viadel, I'm not familiar with that contract. Can you describe the services?
Yeah, well, actually, it was similar to what Solace was doing. It may have been under the umbrella. It's I don't know why I'm blanking on a name, but the person that was actually helping you with the contract services.
Ms. Lewis.
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, Councilwoman Viadel. I can actually speak to that. We have contracted with Ms. Lewis out of the community services admin budget, contractual services, to do some work with us on really looking at domestic violence and what we need to do as a community to respond to it, both with our nonprofit partners and within the police department. The police department's been very responsive in terms of providing policies, looking at potentially adding service lines to help bolster that important community safety response. We also have a violence prevention. We're working on a research and development around violence prevention in the community, and it includes a look at domestic violence. So one of the nice things about the Community Health and Safety Department umbrella here is that we're able to more closely coordinate the work that PD is already doing with Solace, with the domestic violence research and development we're doing in community services, and hopefully come up this coming year with a more robust response to violence in general in the community and domestic violence in particular.
I'm happy to hear that. I guess I was always under the impression that Ms. Lewis was also that contract with Solace. Maybe that's somebody else.
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Viadel, yes, previously I believe that she had been attached to that contract. They internally identified, and she herself identified, that that was not the most effective use of her time. So we contracted with her separately to be able to look a little more globally, both at PD and work in coordination with them, but also again with the rest of the partners in the community.
Yep, that's great to hear. I figured that was the case. Thank you for that clarity. And then there's a budget item for, I was just curious, what's a groundskeeper service? What does that entail? DC Valdez looks excited about that.
Thank you, Counselor. So with COVID, again, we saw with the capacity that the city had, we usually would partner with the streets maintenance crews, and they would take care of our grounds that we have throughout the city. We have about 5 facilities that need upkeep. When we saw with their capacity limitations, they had a really hard time trying to take care of us and the rest of the city as well. So what we're trying to do is make sure that we have a groundskeeper that can assist us with, for one, making sure our facilities look professional. It has a good appearance when our staff come. It's something that helps with morale, for one. But secondly, too, once in a while, especially this year, we get a snap over the evening hours, and the next morning we have snow and ice out there. So having someone that can come out to shovel off those hazards so no one can get hurt, those are things we're looking to go and get addressed, because some of our facilities we've had to wait for long periods of time to get it done. And it was just really hard. And we knew that the staff that we relied on, they were unable to assist us. They tried as best they could. They come in, help us out as best they could. But this is something we really need to make sure that we can maintain a professional appearance, and also just maintain the good, a good safety mechanism in place when like snow happens. or even like the trees as well. If limbs come too low, we need people to take care of those things so it doesn't create a safety hazard.
Great, good to hear. Does that also mean changing the entrance to be more welcoming at the police station?
Well, we want our approach, like I've been to City Hall, I'd love that they have annuals. So I'd love for them to maybe put some annuals out on the front. But here at the police department, there's a number of things that we've done in our lobby to make sure it's a bit more easy for people to access services. There were some safety concerns that we had with a few individuals that came to make some threats. So we do have some safety protocols in place, but we're making sure that we have good communication when people do come to our door. They're able to get access to the lobby. It's secured. And so that way the members of the public who are here getting services and our employees are both provided some safety while doing so.
Thank you for that. It's good to know. Moving on to the overtime budget, which is 1.1 million. And I asked the same of fire. I'm just curious how you all arrived at that number.
Madam Chair, Councilman Villarreal, that is based on the average of the previous 3 years. You can see, I get my stuff kind of scattered all about, but we, when you look at not just what was allotted to us, but what we ended up spending and going over at least a couple of the years. So the current for fiscal year 23, it's an average of the past 3 years, based on the average of the past 3 years.
So the past 2 years, we didn't have events. So that went down in terms of having to be at events. So is this year including the ramping up of events that you all will have to be at or potentially be at?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We're expecting, from what we're seeing already with planning with constituent services and our support operations, it's going to be, people are making up for the last couple of years.
Yes, they are. Yeah, that's true. Okay, thank you. And then I'm happy to hear about, I think at this point in time, the police station and having a downtown presence is a good thing. Can you tell me more though, the 100K that goes to the quote substation, it's really, as we were told, more of an office, but can you tell me how it's going to be utilized by the police team?
Sure. And right now we're still very early into the planning stages of how we're going to utilize this. But we're looking at it a couple of different options to both as kind of a hub for the bike team. So that would be their primary location that they would operate out of. But then also for our north side officers, for those, I'm sure everybody does know, but we separate the town into, for our patrol, we have north side officers and south side officers. And so right now, our north side officers don't really have a station to kind of call home and operate out of as a hub. And so this would be a place that they can use for their general office needs, but also to meet folks on the north side who don't want to come all the way to the south station to make an in-person report, or don't want officers going to their house. And just kind of that presence downtown for ease of use and access for everybody.
Great, good to know. And then there was, bless you, there was a question about, or an idea that I'm trying to think, the rail yard area at the train depot, that would be used potentially for a substation. Has that plan changed and this is the alternative for that?
Yes, ma'am. That was used for a time. And again, that was used mostly by our bike officers. And this can go back to Randy. Randall can speak more to this than I can, better to this, but I think the location itself, we gave that back up. Our bike team, because, and I'm gonna go on and on about the operations of our bike team and how I use them all over the city. But that was more as an office space specifically for the bike team, whereas this location is going to be for the bike team also, but the rest of our north side officers.
Okay. Yeah, I think there was excitement for that. And I think this is a second best alternative at this point. And I think, let's see. I think what's overall, a lot of these items make sense. You all know how I feel about the inequities of the budget increases for staff positions, because I think all of our team as in city family are important to try to be able to keep here, and increases are important for everybody. And so the 16% was really hard for me, mostly because I'm looking at how we all play an integral part of supporting the health and well-being of our city. So I'm hoping that with this change, we've been looking at increases through the past years, and it hasn't shifted as much as Councilor Rivera had indicated. And so I'm looking forward to a time where we're not throwing money at the issues. And when I think about like justification of like where we're at, where we want to go, it always helps to have data. And I feel like we never have the data we need to show and make a case for something. I feel like we are taking shots in the dark, and that's no pun intended, when we're not really like having an informed decision with data. And so I have a hard time with this. We don't get things, information in, ahead of time. There's no like data points that show like what's happening with our staff, retention rates, turnover rates, why things happen, what's being tracked with our exit interviews. And I guess for recruitment tools, I always think, well, why aren't we explaining the full package instead of just saying, oh, the state's doing it, 16%, we should too, instead of looking at like our whole compensation analysis, like not just our salary, which I agree, there's adjustments we definitely need to make, but there's like benefits that we have, the added value that we have to our team. I hope you all use this as a recruiting tool, but we were talking about this in our task force meeting, and part of it was like not thinking about how even with PERA contributions, the city actually pays a higher match, and that in itself is an incentive. So I'm not sure if we're looking at a full package of how we like recruit and tell people about the advantages of working with the city, not just with police, but all our departments. So I'm looking forward to how we look at that in a more holistic manner. I don't feel like, at least from what we've been told and presented on, that we really have that full analysis. So I just want to make that known, that that's frustrating for me, because through my time and tenure on the council, we've continuously made pay increases, and it still feels like we're still dealing with the same situation, except we're moving chairs on the deck, as they say. So there's that issue that I just feel like it's frustrating, but I don't know if Director Salazar has anything to add to that.
Madam Chair, Councilor Villarreal, I appreciate your points, and I absolutely agree with you on our benefits package. And when we are recruiting for new employees across the board, we have a benefits brochure. We talk about the percentage attributed to PERA. We talk about the leave benefits. So we definitely promote the very generous benefits package for all incoming hires and potential hires. We even have a calculation to say what the PERA rate is compared to the state, because it take-home pay to some employees, if they're coming from the state, is very important. So we've developed a calculation for them to plug in their numbers. So we absolutely go through that process with new hires.
That's great to hear. Yeah, because I think that's an advantage that we have over the state, for sure. I guess my last comment is just hoping that the police union will look at, with this hefty increase, that they consider giving the highest bump to the lowest paid positions and really equalizing that for them. We don't get to be part of that conversation, so I'm hoping that that's kind of how they'll be structuring it, and hoping that this will make a change. As well as I would like to know eventually if you all end up doing a survey, maybe not the same structure of survey they did for fire, but really understanding how many of our police officers would be willing to relocate if they did get the down payment assistance, and understanding how much that actually would be. So if you all are you all planning to do some kind of survey?
Councilman Villarreal, yes, and spoken with past President Hildebrandt, and we did get preliminary results from the survey that they put out on regarding this topic. And they had, again, 39 have answered so far. Of the 39, we had, sorry, move all my notes and messiness
Actually,
here.
maybe Chief Joy, when it's complete, then you can give
Okay.
us some of the results, because it might not make sense with just the partial.
Sure.
Again, the questions, I think we'd need to look at it more holistically, but yeah, I think it would be helpful to just kind of see that first, maybe just first perspectives of that survey.
Sure.
And
Just to
that's
give you a base, it's like 53% said they would be willing to relocate so far of the 39. So.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the police department budget is, can we get a roll call, please?
Counselor Villarreal,
Yes.
Counselor Rivera,
Yes.
Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell,
Yes.
and Counselor Romero Worth.
Yes, thank you. All right, that budget is been approved by the Finance Committee. That is the only, the Community Health and Safety Department is the only budgetary item on the agenda today. So we have finished our work. I will just preview, we are going to use our extra day next week, as you're aware. We will be meeting on Tuesday at 1 o'clock to discuss the $15 million in ARPA funding the city is getting, and to review the priorities and the budget adjustment requests to get that moving and out the door. We will be getting packet material, so keep an eye on your email. And there was something else I wanted, that is not part of the FY23 budget. That is, again, a budget adjustment request for FY22, which is the current budget year we are in. But I think these things are complementary, and we will, it will be important for us to have the foundation that we have developed over the last 2 weeks with the year coming, and how this $15 million will aid in the coming year's priorities and how we can get a jump start in some of these areas. So with that preview of coming events, we are adjourned.
Madam
Thank
Chair.
you. Yes.
When are we getting the questions we've been asking? Usually it doesn't help to get them the day of, because it doesn't allow us to look and absorb the information that we've requested. So I'd like to get that sooner
Director
than later.
McCoy, I'm going to defer to you.
Madam Chair, yes, Counselor, staff from all departments are working on providing that information. Some of those questions have been answered in the committee hearings these last 6 days. Additionally, we prepare a memo including all of the budget tables that we have reviewed as they have been approved. So that information will be included in the packet available for all of the counselors to review ahead of the governing body meeting on April 27th.
So it sounds like by end of week, yeah, which is tomorrow.
Thank you.
And am I correct in that, Director McCoy? Because it has to be in the budget, it has to be in the packets for the meeting next week, yeah?
Madam Chair, Counselor, what will be in the packet for the meeting next week are the budgets by department, division, and category, what you have available in the budget book in the format of a memo and a packet for folks that are tuning in next Wednesday to be able to view. That being said, and it's one consolidated packet, it's very standard what we've done previously. It also will include the organizational charts. I think that about covers it. As far as the supplementary material, some of that information has already been emailed out. I've seen those emails going across, and everything that is outstanding. Some of the questions were answered, for example, yesterday during the committee hearing, and the outstanding items will be emailed out. We don't have an exact date on when those will be emailed out. But Councillor Villarreal, I do hear you that it's not helpful to have that the day of the budget vote. So we'll do our best to get that before then.
Okay, thank you. I believe now